All right, what's going on, everybody out there? Shouts out to the Conscious Approach community. JB Wins and Dogon SS are here once again. Thanks to everybody for tuning in, checking out our videos. We appreciate the engagement and support for the channel as we continue to crank out this logical content. Thank you for joining us along for the ride. Major shouts out and appreciation to everybody who has been hitting that subscribe button because you thought that the content that you consumed was worth your time enough for you to perhaps consume more. So you clicking on that subscribe link is of invaluable measure to us, so we certainly appreciate it. And to anyone who has not done so, or you regularly watch the videos, or if this is your first time checking out these videos, this is kind of the game that we like to kick each and every week, man. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We certainly appreciate it. We basically do this for fun. And the point is that we are just trying to grow the community and just carve out our own little niche here on the internet and do things a little differently than what I personally think is going on for the most part, all throughout content creation and YouTube and such. So once again, thanks to everybody who's been subscribing to the channel, and thanks in advance to anybody who will subscribe at some point in the future. Now, with that out of the way, we'll go ahead and get things kicked off. The first thing that we are going to talk about is Tyler Perry, who is clapping back at his critics for suggesting that all of his movies are the same. So apparently this is an ongoing narrative that Tyler Perry has been having to deal with for some time now. If you are familiar with Tyler Perry's work, much of his movies center around themes of like hope and despair, trauma, tragedy, single parenting, going to prison, fighting for custody of your kids, so on and so forth. Tyler Perry kind of majors in Black trauma entertainment. I don't think that that's unfair. I don't think that that's very unfair to say. But apparently people have been going at him on the internet, and elsewhere, sort of saying, hey, man, you need to get up out that box. Your stuff all looks the same. And Tyler Perry is not here for it. He's like, hey, this is the mission that I have been called for. So I don't have time to waste hearing people talk to me about how all my stuff looks the same. If you focus on outside noise, you'll never achieve what you've been called upon to do. And what is the platform upon which he expressed these views? Keke Palmer's show, no less. So before we get into this, we'll go ahead and provide a little context. This here says Tyler Perry claps back at critics who claim his movies are all the same. Tyler Perry has heard it all. He knows what his critics have to say about his films. He's also aware of how successful his particular style of filmmaking is. Perry is estimated to have a net worth of $1 billion, and his films have grossed over $660 million at the worldwide box office. It's this pedigree that Perry brings to the table and why he felt comfortable dismissing criticisms of his work. He recently sat down for an interview with Keke Palmer, though, and decided to address some of these criticisms head on. Palmer alluded to those who claim Tyler Perry makes the same kind of film over and over again. More specifically, a film in which a Black woman is put in a distressing situation. Perry didn't shy away from the remark and instead explained the way he approaches his artistic process. First and foremost, he said, he ignored what detractors had to say. You got to drown all that out, he told Palmer. If you let somebody talk you out of a place that God has put you in, you're going to find yourself in hell. The filmmaker then stated that he has confidence in his work and his methodology. I know what I'm doing is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, he added. So here is that brief exchange on Keke Palmer's show in which Tyler Perry is clapping back at the haters who think that he makes the same kind of movie over and over again.
I love that you've never allowed that criticism to stop you from being able to have your authentic voice as an artist, because it does get really difficult.
Yeah, but what? No. You got to drown all of that out, because if you let somebody talk you out of a place that God has put you in, you are going to find yourself in hell. I know for a fact that what I'm doing is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, because for everyone who is a critic, I have thousands of used to be emails from people saying, this changed my life. Oh my God, you know me. Oh my God, you saw me. How did you know this about my life, my family? So that is what is important to me. We're talking a large portion of my fans who are disenfranchised, who cannot get in the Volvo and go to therapy on the weekend. So you've got this highbrow Negro who is all up in the air with his nose up looking at everything. And then you got people like where I come from and me who are grinders, who really know what it's like, whose mothers and who were caregivers for white kids and were maids and housekeepers and all of these beauticians. That don't discount these people and say that their story don't matter. Who are you to be able to say which Black story is important or should be told? Get out of here with that bullshit.
Yes, and that is what we come up against. It's like you said, the respectability politics that we're always pushing up against, which at the end of the day, what we are facing and what we are oppressed again, it doesn't matter how well you speak, it doesn't matter how well you walk, it doesn't matter how well you do anything. If somebody's going to not like you, they're going to not like you, period. So holding ourselves to these unbelievable standards that stop us from being able to tell our true stories and connect to one another, it only, like you said, puts us in a personal hell and doesn't allow us to really be all that we're meant to be because we're too busy trying to fit into somebody else's idea.
Listen, what I always say is don't worry about being in somebody's box because when you die, they're going to put you in one. So you may as well just live your life outside of a box.
Ooh.
Whatever, bro.
All right. There you go.
Godly.
The article goes on to say Tyler Perry doesn't bash people who criticize his work. Rather, he focuses on the people who enjoy what he makes. And then it just continues on there. Tyler Perry and Keke Palmer have known each other for decades. The latter told People magazine that Perry offered to help with her skin condition when she was just 14 years old, and so on and so forth between their personal relationship. So Tyler Perry's like, hey, man, don't let people put you into a box because when you die, they're going to put you in one anyway. And he just doesn't listen to the criticism because, hey, man, this is what I am supposed to do. This is my purpose. What are your thoughts on Tyler Perry's comments, clapping back at those who criticize his work for always being the same or seeming like it's always the same?
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm not surprised that he doesn't listen to critics because all of his movies come out the same. So here's my thing, man. When people have critiques on things, just the essence of critique, at least in my opinion, is to critically analyze whatever somebody's got going on. And, my critiques are more or less the constructive variety. I think Tyler Perry is an extremely talented dude. Well, hey, you don't get in his position without being a talented person. But at the same time, what got him there was, I guess it was still the trauma stuff. But once you've cornered that market, I think it's time for you to expand and grow. One of the things that I like, one of the better tenets that I like in psychology is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And one thing with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the bottom, the base level, the part that everybody needs is security, safety, and all these other good things. And one thing that Tyler Perry movies does is it hangs out in the lower bottom part of Maslow's. And if there was a talented man like himself who has so much intellect and all these little bars that he wants to give us, taking you off your path of what God did, so now you're going to hell, or all this box rhetoric. So if this guy is so wise, then he should also be wise enough to take this constructive criticism and actually hit the top tier of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is self-actualization. And within self-actualization, that's the part where you have, I don't want to say cured, but you've worked with your base traumas and you have elevated yourself to a level to where now you can actually give back to the community. And when you give back to the community, you're not giving them trauma so they can swim in. You're giving them ways to get out of that trauma. The only thing now he can say that his movies are trying to get people out of trauma because the women are going through something and they meet some nice guy with a bad hairpiece. So he can say that's what it's doing. But in actuality, I think the movies spend way too much time dwelling in the cesspool of Black trauma. I've seen critiques online where people were saying the same thing as me, like, "Hey, bro, you can improve." And then I would go in the comment section and I would see people literally talking about, no, this is based in reality. This is reality movies. I'm like, what reality are we talking about? Now, granted, some of these people are living this. I saw that movie that he just came out with Tia, what's that? Tia Mowry's ex-husband or whatever. Got the name of that. Something in the Black. Divorce in the Black. So I saw that. You know, I saw it, guys. Don't judge me. All right. So as I'm sitting there watching it, you know, for market research, I'm trying to make sure that, hey, is this the same thing? Sure enough, it's the same thing. Just crazy psychopathic dude that she's dealing with. Now, are there crazy psychopathic dudes all the time? Hell, I can look up an article right now. Something crazy happened yesterday. So I'm not saying that these are wild phenomenons. These are things that don't happen. My thing is, why are you dwelling there? So, yeah, hella talented dude. I'll give him that. You know, when the plays first came out, I was laughing. Even at the Medea stuff, I thought it was quality stuff at that time. But he never grew, in my opinion. And at that point, it became more than him just capturing reality. It became agenda-based, in my opinion. And if you always swim in this pool of victimhood, swim in this pool of trauma, swim in this pool of whatever else he's got in these movies, then that ultimately becomes your reality. So I'm not a fan of it. I would tell him that tighten up, but of course he won't, because I understand, at least personally, I think that he's in this position for good reason, to disseminate this type of material to the masses of our people. But I got more to say. But what are your thoughts, sir, on Sir Tyler Perry saying that, hey, man, you know, my movies aren't, you know, they are what they are. Are you agreeing with that? Do you feel like he should improve? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's his opinion, and it is his work. So if he feels as though he is doing what his mission is, you know, what it was preordained for him to be doing, I'm not going to take that away from the guy. However, I, like you, am of the mindset that if you are truly a shepherd for your community, then at some point you have a responsibility to, through your art, portray different realities and different orientations in terms of life setup, so that you can show that very same community all of the various different pathways and vibrations that they can be on. That's my personal critique. And it's funny you bring up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because I've mentioned this on this channel before. One of the books that changed my life was when I read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the tenets of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People in a lot of ways mirror Maslow's hierarchy of needs, from the standpoint that you start at a baseline level of recognizing certain paradigms that you have been living in. And as you gradually, you know, go up the ladder, and as you increase in terms of the habits that make you highly productive, by the time you've reached that last point, you are at a point where you are able to embrace the notion of interdependence. And through interdependence, you are able to work with others in order to be the best version of yourself. And you also understand the importance of the fact that you don't have to mire in the various paradigms that have ruled you, that have sort of ruled your life from the point that you were sort of a child and you started to understand your place in the world. You have the power to shift the paradigm so that you can think differently about things. So in saying all of that, I hear where he is coming from, and he is entitled to do whatever he wants with his body of work. But to say that you were called upon to do those things, to me, is a bit iffy, because if you think of yourself as someone who is a shepherd for his community, then you have also a responsibility to present your art in multiple facets so that you can give your community different representations in order to orient how they perceive their reality on a day-to-day basis. One of the reasons why I've always appreciated the show Insecure, and I think I said this before too, like on the surface, that show is not for me. Like, I'm not in the target demographic for that show. I feel based on the direction and the writing of that show was a show that was primarily tailor-made for Black women. But nevertheless, I often found myself a supporter for and watching the show Insecure. Insecure was a show, I think Issa Rae created it. She was also the main writer. She directed a lot of the episodes. She was the driving creative force behind that show. It was a show that came on HBO every Sunday. And the reason why I came to appreciate that show, even though I don't necessarily consider myself to be in the target demographic, was because it was a show that was created by a Black person, had Black people writing it, had Black people directing it, and had Black people as the majority of the cast. And it wasn't a show that from one episode to the next was mired in trauma the entire time. These were people who were living in Los Angeles, and they were just doing what humans do, which is they were trying to have successful relationships. They were trying to climb the career ladder and have successful careers. They were trying to live life the best they can. How to be the best version of myself, how not to be a bad person, how not to mistreat people. And in the event that I do mistreat people, how can I reconcile some of these conflicting emotions so that I can grow from these situations and become better? And along the way, there was a lot of humor and raunchiness. There was some sex stuff. The show to me just depicted everyday life for upwardly mobile Black people in modern day America, which in my opinion is something that I don't see enough when it comes to the portrayal of Black people on a day-to-day basis when it comes to entertainment. What I see the vast majority of the time is either Tyler Perry-like movies or shows like Power and Raising Kanan and the other Power shows, or BMF or The Chi. That's what I see the majority of the time. So my whole thing is, let's do a better job of creating an overall tapestry of the existence of not just Black people, but all disenfranchised people. Because on a day-to-day basis, not all disenfranchised people are running around languishing in their trauma. They're trying to figure out the best ways to get up out of it. Correct. And I think just as palpable of a movie that sends a message as some of this Tyler Perry stuff is, it's also just as palpable to see Black people in outer space, or to see Black people in fantasy shows. You know, right now I'm watching House of the Dragon on HBO, and there's a bunch of like Black characters in that show, and I appreciate that. It's a fantasy, so it's a fantasy political show about dragons and magic, but there's a bunch of Black people running around in the show. I appreciate that. You know, put Black people in outer space, put Black people in corporate boardrooms. You know, whether they're doing shicey stuff or not. I think that some of these filmmakers and creators who think of themselves, fancy themselves as, I am doing my part to accurately portray the existence of Black people and otherwise disenfranchised people through my art, because that's the contribution that I am giving to the world. I think that those people have the same responsibility or obligation to create a more well-rounded overall tapestry. So he has the opinion that he has, and he can stick to it if he wants. I would just say to any other artists out there, you can go the other way. Give us, you know, Ryan Coogler, the guy who directed Black Panther. He doesn't do trauma central. His stuff isn't trauma all the time, right? So we just need more people like that to create a balance to this particular equation. And right now, in my opinion, I would suggest that there is a dearth of said balance. I'm not here to litigate Tyler Perry. He wants to keep making trauma stuff, then he can keep making trauma stuff. But it does not change the fact that, in my opinion, most of his stuff does deal with trauma. And for him to suggest that people who are criticizing him are attempting to put him in a box does not really go so far as to acknowledge the fact that he makes the same kind of content, whereas he's boxing himself.
Exactly.
So, you know, which box is which? Because to me, you box yourself in because you make the same stuff all the time. Yes. So I guess we're just dealing with a bunch of boxes, because you box yourself in, and you say your critics are also trying to box you in. So which is it? Is a question that I would pose to him. But my overall point is creating a more well-rounded tapestry for the representation of quote-unquote disenfranchised people through art, because it doesn't always have to be about trauma all the time.
Hey man, well said. And I was going to touch on that too because yeah, bro, like he's fashioned his own box. He's typecasted himself, and he just does the same thing over and over. It's on repeat. And so also we gotta also see what he means, at least for me personally, when he's talking about his mission and doing what God wants him to do and all this other stuff. So a lot of his material is Black church centric. And so since it's Black church centric, it's dealing with how the Black church deals with things. One of my biggest issues that I have with the Black church in America is the amount of money that's being generated every Sunday that the community never sees. One of the bigger pet peeves that I have, if I am in a urban neighborhood and I'm seeing crime here, crime there, but church over here on this corner, church over here on this corner, and I'm still seeing a crime all over the place. I know there's enough money being donated to these churches in this area to help clean this up, but the church doesn't give back. And when you're dealing with these churches and these preachers and these pastors or whatever, it is for them just a comeuppance. One thing that Tyler Perry does is he's using that same kind of energy just in the box office, where he's generating tides, if you will, from the people who are just church going, I want to give my money. There's not really any other Black directors or whatever that's making Black religious stuff all the time. And so even though his stuff may vary or veer off of religion per se, there's always a religious undertone in some of his things where there's God, there's whatever that. And so I'm saying all that stuff to say is that if he believes that he is doing God's work by constantly promoting trauma, I would then ask, well, what God is it? Because I would also say that God, whatever, in this context would want people to self-improve and pull themselves up. And nothing that I see from him, nothing that I see about the people that he hangs around or anything that he does is, in my opinion, uplifting our community. So people could say what they want. Oh, he's got a Black studio, he's hiring Black people, or hey man, I think we covered it here, or not, we grazed on it. But
Right.
He's looking at venturing into AI. So AI can just do everything, So I'm pretty sure that'll be less Black employees, and I'm pretty sure, half his scripts come out AI generated anyway. Only thing I had to do is go to Open AI and say, hey, write me a Tyler Perry script. It knows exactly what I'm talking about. So they're going to have the guy with the bad hair piece, mad abusive, all right, DV, SA, whatever he's doing. And well-to-do Black woman, bending over backwards to make him happy. And it's going to be the same thing over and over and over again. I just literally explained the divorce in the Black thing. And I'm trying to figure out what the in the Black was. Then I'm sitting here watching it, and then Megan Good talking about something. Yeah, I want blah 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 in the Black, and I was like, oh, so y'all named it In the Black for this one little thing right here. Like, I don't even know what In the Black means, but all I saw was a crazy Black man going hammer sauce, really trying to do everything in his power to be a stereotypical Black man, angry, aggressive, out of his mind. So Tyler Perry, what he does, in my opinion, is sickening. I feel as though what he does is a detriment to our community. I don't feel as though he is an advocate for us. If I'm starting a reservation and, I'm bringing all of our best and our brightest, I'm leaving him out. And I feel as though that what he does is he works against us. And I feel as though he works against anybody that chooses to watch his movies, whether Black, white, or anybody in between. So yeah, I can keep going on about this dude, but I don't look at entertainment as just entertainment. All right. And I've said this here, I don't know how many times, but these things are, whenever you're watching something, last thing I'll say, seriously, when people talk about predictive programming and they say, oh, something's going on out there and, it was in a movie 3 years ago, they predicted it. No, they didn't predict it. They needed your manifestation for it to happen. And so in order for, whenever you're watching a piece of content, Your subconscious mind can't tell the truth of whether it's true or not. All it's doing is recording is trauma, abuse, abuse, abuse. And so whether you like it or not, or whether you know it or not, you may be attracting these types of things. Maybe not the direct, the same exact thing, but you're attracting that. And so whenever you're choosing to sit here and watch these movies by Tyler Perry and condition your subconscious mind to think that that's how people behave, then ultimately this becomes your reality. So I'm pretty sure all the people that love all the Tyler Perry movies can sit here and resonate with it because, well, they live a trauma-based life. I'm not saying my life ain't based in trauma. I just choose not to dwell in it. So his movies, in my opinion, are a detriment to the community. They are putting us in a bad position. And the Boondocks episode that they had where he was on BET and all that stuff, to me, that was a perfect representation of what he is. And he never liked Boondocks for that either. He wanted to sue and all kinds of stuff. But honestly, it called him out for the pariah that he is. So I'm not buying this dude. I feel as though he's a wolf in sheep's clothing, here to push agendas. And I'm not for it. So he can sit here and use God and the devil all he wants. I can do that too. And I believe I'm doing God's work. And I believe I'm here to call him out for his BS. And if he try to put me in a box thinking I'm some type of conspiracy theorist, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna flip that.
You're just the uppity Negro. That's what
that's right.
Yeah,
I'm the uppity Negro.
You're the uppity Negro because you're barely criticizing his work.
Yeah, my bad. Let me get my uppity ass off out of here with this. But yeah, man. So he can kick rocks. I'm pretty sure he's gonna say something else in the future, and I got more scolding things for him. But yeah, man, I can't stand it, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is a parallel between a conversation like this and a conversation like the music. You'll hear a lot of defenders on the music who will chastise a person like me, who's always criticizing the hip hop industry for popularizing some of the more negative aspects of life in reality. And one of the key reasons behind why it's unreasonable for me to criticize it is because, hey, these artists are merely giving you a glimpse into what things are like. They're putting real life into music. Mm-hmm. So it's okay, therefore, that the popularization of this music centers around only one or two specific themes all the time, because they are nevertheless giving you reality. Mm-hmm. And it posits, therefore, that the existence of the group of people who make this music as the representatives from their community are suggesting that this is their reality. Therefore, to be black is to be always constantly in trauma. Or therefore to be any one of these disenfranchised groups or communities, or someone who comes from a hard up type living, is to be synonymous with trauma. And I patently disagree with that. I don't think that that's true. I think that you can always shift your paradigm and you don't have to languish in it. But I guess it's just different perspectives, and I'll have to respectfully disagree with his point of view on that. It's funny too, because like he does participate in movies and other forms of art that don't specifically always have to do with black trauma. The interesting thing about it is, in every single last one of those movies, he's not the director. So Tyler Perry's been in, he was in one of the more recent Star Treks. Like when they brought Star Trek back, he was in that. He was in Gone Girl. He was in Alex Cross. So he's been in movies where that's not the theme, but he's also not been the director of those movies. It seems as though when he has full control and he's grabbed the reins, this is what he chooses to do. And like I said before, if you are someone who is a shepherd for your people, I think you also have a responsibility to paint a more holistic representation of what life could be like, instead of constantly languishing in what you believe life is all the time. And it's one of the reasons, again, why I appreciate shows like Insecure, because these were middle class to upper middle class people who were dating, they were getting married, they were having children, they had corporate jobs, they were living in LA, they were trying to do their thing and just living life, which is what humans are always striving to do. Mm-hmm. And one might surmise that that's not a black show. And to a person who would say that, I would retort with, that's the problem, that you think that that's not a black show.
Yeah. Hey, 100, man. Hey, so we'll see what happens with all of this stuff, man. But hey, sorry guys, I'm not a Tyler Perry fan, so I don't won't be. So I will continue to dunk on this man, windmills if possible, and yeah, man, if he brings it in the paint, I'm blocking his stuff. So yeah, man, not a fan of this dude, but he's gonna do what he does, and I would just ask anybody that is a fan of this guy is to, really honestly just take a step back and evaluate what he's putting in the minds of everybody. And I don't think it's cool. So yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm not rocking with him on this. I think that's kind of short-sighted.
Yeah, Keke Palmer too, man.
He has the talent to do it too. Like, he needs to write a sci-fi script or something. Like, make a movie where people are time traveling and the main characters are black and they're time traveling. I don't know.
But it's gonna end up happening.
Do something more expansive with the talent that God has given you. So,
but it's going to end up happening. If they're out of space and they're doing some galactic stuff, just the Borg is just going to be the people doing the essay then, you know what I'm saying? Or the domestic violence there. So he's just gonna take the trauma to outer space.
That would be very disappointing. That would be very disappointing. If Tyler Perry wrote Game of Thrones, everybody would just be in a state of trauma anyway. Still, Lord of the Rings, the Tyler Perry version, it's domestic abuse and infidelity and people cheating and child custody hearings. Yeah. I guess I'm gonna ride on my dragon to my custody hearing. Whatever. All right. Get out of here, Tyler.
Yeah, get out of here.
Next up, we're gonna talk about comments made by Swae Lee, who is one half of Ray Shrimmered. He went on blast on social media talking about how black people should not vote for Kamala Harris because they think they should because she's black, essentially is what he is saying. Now, he gave his reasons. He tried to get a little more substantive with the reasoning behind why he feels that way. But the essence of his message is, black people need to chill with automatically leaping to the conclusion that they're supposed to vote for her because of the symbolic stuff. I encourage everybody who has not seen it to check out the video that we did last week discussing her, with respect to comments made by Candace Owens. A lot of people had a lot to say about that, but we touched on the issue, or at least I did. I touched on the problems with the current political climate with respect to identity politics, which I think is a poison that is killing everybody. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on or what color you are or who you are. I think identity politics is destroying the very fabric of this country, in my opinion. But I digress. So this says Swae Lee urges black people not to vote for Kamala Harris for one reason. Swae Lee has called on his fans not to vote for likely Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris in this year's election. Taking to X, the Ray Shrimmered rapper aired out his grievances with the sitting vice president, who is set to replace Joe Biden as her party's nominee. Swae started by saying, "Do not vote for Kamala. Do your research on that whole camp." He then explained his opposition to Harris in more detail. "I pay over millions in tax dollars every year. This man sent it to a whole nother country. Those little dollars that came off your checks, they gave it away. Think about that shit." So here are his tweets here. So here are more of his tweets. "The money we sent away, every American citizen could have got minimal 200 grand. Think about that. But I guess we don't need this shit. And y'all standing for Kamala. My black people, she don't do nothing but sign off on things against y'all. Voting just because you think she's black. Bro, you voting for her because you think she's black. She's black and Indian. She don't lean to the black side. She just took any state away from a black woman." I think he meant to say amnesty, but I guess he just doesn't know how to spell or say that. Away from a black woman. Y'all don't research. Go look at what Trump did for blacks. HBCUs, all type shit. Media don't show everything, bro. And that was in response to somebody who came at him by saying, "Hate when you rapper N-words, only get your politics from other N-words planted in your life for these exact moments in history." The Black Beatles hitmaker then directed his warning to his fellow Black Americans, and that's more of what I already read. Swae Lee was widely criticized for his comments, with many accusing him of being selfish and ignorant. And that was a quote from what I also read here. Swae Lee and his ilk are selfish, uninformed, ignorant, greedy, and white supremacist adjacent clowns. These neo-blacks repping Trump are white nationalists and greedy mofos. Another said, Trump gave you the largest tax cut in the history of tax cuts. You are a wealthy musician. Why do you deserve more tax breaks than regular, everyday, hardworking people? Pay your fair share. A third user attempted to enlighten the 31-year-old rapper on the government's fiscal policies, responding, "Are you stupid?" In 2022, total U.S. foreign aid, both economic and military, to every country was $70 billion. For comparison, the Department of Education got $80 billion. So I guess that commenter's point is money spent domestically on the Department of Education exceeds money spent elsewhere, like for the military or for foreign aid. That's about $200 per person. For comparison, your mansion is worth 22,000 times more than that. Swae later hit back and expressed support for Harris's political opponent, Donald Trump. Bro, you voted for her because you think she's black. She's black and Indian. She don't lean to the black side. She just took. Okay, so that was a quote that I already read. In response to another critic who pointed out that every president sends money abroad as part of international obligations, Swae said, "It's time it stops," and she gave away billions upon billions. Why are we sitting here hurting in this country? So many hungry. You remember who gave the stimulus and PPP, right? So that's basically the gist of it. This kid here is pro-Trump all the way 100%. And it seems as though he is pro-Trump for economic reasons. He feels as though voting blue, going for Harris, going Democrat is problematic if you're only doing it for the symbolic reason of her being a black female, and less about economic policies that, in his opinion, would be best for the direction of the country. So what do you have to say about Swae Lee's comments there? This is how old I am. I did not realize that this guy is 31.
Damn, he is?
Yeah, it says he's 31. So the more I think about, I mean, he has been in the game for a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't know he was that old. But yeah, what do you make of this exchange and him going off, with his thoughts on Harris there?
I mean, I think the pushback that he was getting is for sure is him talking to his, or at least people who follow him or who's adjacent to him, that was giving him they were giving him this pushback because, well, he's a rapper. So since he's a rapper and he's coming out the way that he's coming out about this topic, since he doesn't talk about politics any other time, people gonna have something to say about that. They don't respect him about that. Go hit a melody. So I'm sure they were just heavy-handed just off the strength of him talking about it. Also, it didn't serve him talking about how much millions of dollars he lost in taxes. That's not going to serve the people as well. So he left enough fodder out there for people to throw some stuff back at him. However, I still agree with him in the stance that voting for Kamala, just for the mere fact that people believe that she's black, is laughable. And I don't want to say it's a waste of vote, because I think voting is just a waste of time. But still, it's a situation of, man, that's the only reason why. But when you talk to a lot of the African Americans who would like to vote for the Blue Party, it's just a default for black people. They honestly believe it's the Black Party. So if you got somebody in there that's brown, it's hitting all the cues. So the masses that were already going to do that are going to keep doing that. So Swae throwing this out there to a large demographic of people who are his fans that are probably Democratic are not going to like what he's got to say here. I don't think this is cornball sellout. I think he is really protecting his bottom line, his dollar. I think a lot of people who are voting for the other side, the red side, are looking at the financial side of all of this. There are extremists who are looking on the red side to get other things outside of finances. All right, certain bills or things passed to go in their favor. So there is no right side of the aisle, if you ask me. I don't believe in the concept of the lesser of two evils. Don't ask me to pick between the two. All right. So I think where he's coming from is a genuine spot. And I would second his motion on look at what happened financially in this country in the last 4 years. I would say it's an absolute joke. I mean, I used to love going to the grocery store, bro. You know, swiping everything and not even checking how much it costs and walking up out of there. And I spent $40 and I had a ball. Now I'm checking prices. I'm grabbing receipts. I'm not receipts, coupons. I'm doing everything, and I'm getting half the stuff for more than $40. And it's not changing. It's getting aggressively worse. So this guy who has something smart to say about Swae Lee because of we gave 80 million and versus the 70, and that's $200 or two whatever, and you made $22,000. Your house cost 20. Like, that's a real smart ass answer. The overall point that I think he was trying to get at is that, okay, well, whatever, it's impacting me, but it's also impacting you. And even though he got all this stuff or whatever, he's gonna still sleep good at night, regardless of who's in power. He just can't live as luxurious, but he's still gonna be straight. But it's the people that's in the middle class who's teetering on that line to poverty line, who's really feeling the impact. With apartments, doing credit checks, got to make 3 times the amount. They doing all this extra stuff, and a 1 bedroom is $1,700, $2,000. The average everyday person is gonna feel it. So I think what Swae was trying to get at was, hey man, everybody's money's getting tight, and you can sit here and act like it ain't, but if you put this lady in office, why wouldn't the trend continue? So I'm not saying that my denouncement for Kamala is an endorsement for Trump. I think both of them are clowns, but I think this Kamala stuff is one of the biggest clown shows that we have seen in politics in quite some time. Bigger of a clown show than Trump. bigger than Biden, as crazy as that sounds. But what are your thoughts on Sir Swae Lee saying that, hey man, don't vote for Miss Kamala, man? You down with that, or you agree with the naysayers and saying he needs to stay in his place?
Yeah, I agree with the spirit of his message in that I'd never think that it is productive to participate in a process as consequential as this because of feels and symbolism. I do not think it is prudent for people to vote for the lesser candidate because you just want to see a person who's a woman or who's black or a black woman be in charge because you think symbolically that would just be a wonderful thing to see. So just on the surface, based upon that alone, I loathe identity politics and how much of a weapon it's become against the people in terms of influencing how someone is supposed to participate in the political process. And whenever I speak on these issues, I don't speak from the standpoint of affluent people. I'm talking about working class people who make up 70% of this country, not everybody else. 70% of this country is not happy with what's going on. I don't give a damn what you say. I don't care if you think Trump is the most evil person in the world. It doesn't matter. And you think Kamala is the most qualified person ever. The fact of the matter is 70% of the people in this country disapprove of the direction of the economy. And depending on who you speak to, it's always the other person's fault. People on the DNC side will say, well, the Republicans did this and Trump did that, and that's why the economy's jacked up. People on the Trump Republican red side are going to say Biden did this and the Democrats did that, and that's why the economy's messed up. To either side, it's the other person's fault.
Right.
And what people on the ground are asking for is, can somebody please give me a specific, detail-laden plan for how you are going to fix this? Like I said last week, people primarily care about two things, in my opinion, when it comes to politics overall. First, I think they care about minimizing the chances of global conflict, and they care about the economy. Those are the two things that people care about the most. Once you move past global conflict and the economy, then we get into other things like education, pro-choice, women's rights, all of that good stuff. Okay. But first and foremost, in my opinion, people care about global conflict and they care about the economy. So what people who make up 70% of this country are saying is, I don't give a damn who this is. Whether you're red, blue, I don't give a damn. Somebody please give me a specific, concrete blueprint for how you are going to fix this, so that I am not constantly living paycheck to paycheck, despite the fact that I'm a single earner who at this point is making close to 75K a year. Like, at this point, the rate of inflation is such that the price of goods and services has far exceeded a commensurate rate of wages and salaries, to the point where you can be in the 70K range, and depending on where you live, depending on your market, you're still struggling living paycheck to paycheck, unless you're combining incomes.
Correct.
And this is people who don't have kids, who don't have families. So if you throw children into the mix, it's a whole different ball game.
Yep.
And these people are literally scraping by all year long, waiting to get their little chunk of change back from the IRS because they can claim kids on their taxes as dependents. That is not thriving. That's merely existing.
Correct.
And what 70% of this country is saying is, can somebody give me a blueprint for how to thrive instead of existing? Reduce this wealth gap, get rid of these ridiculous taxations so that everyone has a better chance to thrive economically. Not everybody's going to make six figures. Not everybody's going to win the lottery. Not everybody's an NBA player. Not everybody's a rapper or an entertainer. Not everybody is a famous artist or a real estate tycoon or a famous chef who owns 5 restaurants. Not everybody has 6 properties that they rent out. 70% of this country is working class, people who depend on a check writer. Now, you can look down upon those people and say, well, do better. But the reality is, this is the majority of the people. And they want to know how you're going to fix this. And to those people who are wondering how you're going to fix this, a person like Swae Lee's comments make a little bit of sense. I don't give a shit if you're a black woman. How are you going to fix this?
Right.
And so I think the spirit of Swae Lee's message is, yo, stop it with the systematic programming. He's not like, okay, I'm not going to speak for him. I'll speak for myself. I'm not saying she's not the right person to vote for. I'm also not saying he's not the right person to vote for. What I'm saying is somebody needs to be specific with the plan instead of fear mongering over the border and the A word, women's rights and racism. Straight fear mongering tactics. Like, that's what people care about. So, you know, when he's talking, he's obviously speaking from his perspective as a person who's a millionaire. But I don't think that makes what he is saying any less true from the perspective of those on the ground who are looking around for some sort of actual leadership. Like, what's the plan? Fix it. What are your plans for this? Because the sooner you minimize the chance of global conflict and the sooner you can ease the burden that this economy is putting on 70% of the people in this country, the sooner we can focus our efforts on some of these other things that y'all care about so much. Yeah, I'll start looking at systematic racism more because I'll have the bandwidth to step back and breathe, and I can actually pay attention more. Maybe I'll focus on women's rights more if I'm not a woman, because women clearly are lockstep that they all care about that stuff. You know, things like what they're doing in public school systems, you know, some of these weirdo agendas that they're trying to institute in public schools. Or if you look on the other side, things like Project 2025, where they're literally trying to defund the Department of Education. I agree. Some of that, I agree that a lot of that stuff is important, but at the same time, I do not have the bandwidth to care as much about that when me as a single earner literally cannot afford to put a roof over my head, because landlords want first and last and security on an apartment that's $2,000 a month in rent. So I just have $6,000 to just give you so that I can move into this space. Or depending on the market that you live in, no one has $400,000 or $500,000 to put down on a single family home. Not like that. These prices for goods and services and basic amenities are absolutely through the roof, and it's crushing people. Like, people are crippled. So yeah, I'm on the same wavelength in terms of, look, I don't give a shit about your symbolism. You're a black woman, okay, that's wonderful. I'll celebrate that 30 years from now when my children are generationally wealthy. But for now, I need you to give me a specific plan for how you're going to reverse some of this ridiculousness. I don't even care whose fault it is. You say it's their fault. The other people say it's your fault. So from my standpoint, it's everybody's fault. And some of these people who are going to comment on this video are going to have receipts for how it's the other side's fault. Everybody has a reason for why it's the other guy's fault.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired of that. I don't give a damn. Somebody fix it. So I hear what he's saying, because what he is saying is essentially somebody needs to come up with a blueprint for how they are going to reverse some of the true ways that people around here hurting in these streets, outside of demanding that people need to vote for them because of symbolism, race, sex, gender, and all of this other garbage that people care less about. So it kind of parrots a lot of the talking points that I brought up last week, but it reinforces it nevertheless. I think people are just really exhausted. At the end of the day, people are exhausted and they're over it and they're tired of it. And like, I disagree with you from the standpoint that voting is like a waste of time, but I can't fault you for feeling that way, because sometimes you look at it and it's like, well, what the hell is the point? 4 years later, this is still what it is. So I hear what you're saying. It's just unfortunate that I can't come at you and be like, nah, bro, you need to be on this, because for all intents and purposes, it is a clown fiesta. I'll leave the rest of it to you, because I kind of went on and on there, but I don't have a problem too much with what Mr. Swae Lee had to say there.
I mean, I agree, dude. And I think ultimately what people need to start looking at, and black people in particular, is to really take a step back. I mean, take a step back, step away, take a step back. And while you're taking a step back and looking at what's going on, you will actually see what's really happening is outside of, systemic racism. Honestly, it's systemic classism that's going on. And
it's rooted in economics.
Yeah. And what's happening here is everybody that's at a certain level is getting the shaft right now, black included, white included. All right. And so one of the things that I tell people all the time, and to remove it from the political arena, but just looking into your everyday life. As I mentioned earlier in my first comment, I was talking about the grocery store, and I also brought up rent, living expenses, mortgage prices, all this other stuff. When you look at your actual health, all right, and I've already talked about here before where, all of these GMOs, all of these pesticides, all these chemicals, all of this stuff that they putting in people's foods, microplastics, you name it. All right. The name of the game right now, in order to make sure that you're going to be a sustainable person in the future, surviving and not having ailments and relying on big pharma, is making sure that you eat the right foods. It's all the way down to the right kind of water. All right. I make sure I drink alkaline water. Now, I got some throwaway sink water here too. All right. But I mainly drink alkaline water, because the name of the game is you need to be able to afford good water. The name of the game is you need to be able to afford good food. If you want to eat greens, eat good greens, clean greens. If you want to eat chicken, eat some clean chicken. It's going to cost you more. You saw this pack over here that cost $16, and the other pack that cost $9. That cost $9 for a reason. You need to be able to afford that $16. You need to be able to afford that $6 box of pasta if you want to eat that. So the name of the game right now is class. And if you ain't in that class, actually everything's becoming a food desert at this point, is what I'm getting at. So if you want to go eat fast food, if you want to go to your local grocery store, whatever, most likely it's full of garbage. So you need to be able to afford good food. You need to be able to afford good health care. You need to be able to afford good schools for your children. You need to be able, this is class. And everything that they're doing right now, especially inflation, especially all these forms of taxation that they're doing right now, is to make sure that the American people stay broke. One of the better ways that they make sure that everybody stay broke is all these subscription programs. You got to subscribe to this, subscribe to that. Everything went from, hey, paying, whatever, one flat rate or whatever. Now everything's subscription based. $6 here, $9 there, $20 there. You go over here, whatever. Insurance for your car's going up. Everybody's taxing you. And then so back in the day, it was taxation without representation, blah, 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 blah. So they just broke down all those forms of taxation into all these various corporate entities. We're all in bed with each other laying down. So the name of the game is economics, classism. Down the line, there's racism and other things. I'm not saying that racism doesn't exist. But one thing that people need to understand is that the big game here is classism. And they're lumping everybody in that boat. All right. So whenever they had slaves out there in the field, yeah, they had the ones in the field, they had the ones in the house, but then they had the poor whites making sure that they were the supervisors. They just call them team leads and everything now. But it's the same premise. They're the poor whites. And those are people struggling. They're not the ones who own the house. They're not the ones who's financing the boats. They got it better than the people in the field. They're making a little bit more money, but nothing like Master's making. And those people out there, that's the overseers who think that they're better than everybody else or whatever, they're starting to see it too. And they're starting to see that, hey, my skin complexion ain't cutting it. It's actually my finances. All right. So you need to be able to afford good healthcare, afford good food, afford good schooling for your kids. You need to be able to do that. And in order to make sure you need to be able to do that, you need to make the right kind of capital. And one thing that this country is doing right now, especially within the last 4 years, is taxing the hell out of you so you can't afford to do it. So one thing that Swae brought up here was a good point. It was in his little world. He's a rapper, so he got millions of dollars. He don't want to come off his millions of dollars. But what he's speaking on is tipping the iceberg or scratching the iceberg of something that's a lot bigger. This is bigger than race. This is bigger than hip hop. This is what's going on in the country. So I'm not saying that Trump is the answer. I'm not damn sure I ain't saying Kamala's the answer. What I'm saying is the answer is with us. Black, white, brown, everybody in between. Everybody that's getting the shaft right now from Netflix and Publix and Kroger's and everything in between. Everybody's trying to get us.
Everybody.
So my thing is just pay attention, man. They try, and whenever you watch CNN, pay attention to what they're talking about. So whenever you're watching CNN, Fox, or whatever, one side's talking about race, one side's talking about this, one side's talking about that, one side, but nobody's talking about the classism that's happening right now. And so I'm telling you guys right now, that's what's really going on right here. So yeah, man, guys, pay attention. Swae Lee, he's saying it the best way he can, and he's telling whoever's willing to listen that if you're voting for this woman here just merely for the complexion of her skin, then you're honestly you shouldn't vote. You shouldn't vote if you're doing identity politics. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's another debate. But yeah, guys, just pay attention, man, and make sure you put your right ducks in a row, man, because whether it's Project 2025, whether it's Agenda 30, they got stuff down the line planned for everybody. And you got to make sure you got your ducks in a row to make sure you don't get the shaft. So, hey, shout out to Swae Lee and Kit Rocks, Kamala. And I saw a clip about her anyway, talking about greens. I saw her. I was just joking last week. But she said, hey, man, I make a mean pot of greens. I was like, no way. She said, it was so many greens, I had to prepare them in the bathtub. That's like, excuse me.
Yeah. I think people are just exhausted with all of this stuff, and people will get upset with him because of the money that he makes and the fact that he's a hip hop person, like you said. But I think one of the biggest disservices that this process has done to all people is the way that it was able to successfully pivot to tugging at your heartstrings in order to influence how you participate in this process instead of looking at things conventionally, because that's what's caused the wealth gap to rise. And that is what has caused people to not be able to keep up in a commensurate manner with the rise of the cost of goods and services. And it is crippling the hell out of everybody. And it's ironic too, because these people who get on these political platforms and they host these shows on these news networks, Fox and MSNBC and CNN, like it's easy for them to talk about all of this. It's easy for them to touch on things like race, sex, and gender. It's easy for them to touch on that and the big bad boogeyman who's like, the dictator who's going to put us all in an authoritarian dictatorship. It's easy for those individuals on these networks and platforms to talk about this. They all make more than 6 figures a year, all of them. So it's easy for you to talk that noise. You gonna be good because you are above the line of demarcation, which dictates that the class warfare is going to penalize you, is going to victimize you. So yeah, you have the time to talk about all of this other stuff. 70% of this country does not. And they just want to know what the hell these people are going to do. And everybody's being failed. Like the population at large is being let down in a considerable way. And it's very disappointing. But that's what people are tired of. And you can dismiss Swae if you want because he ain't put his tweets in complete sentences and he misspelled a few words here or there. But the spirit of his message is not incorrect. People need to stop allowing these apparatuses to control their actions and behaviors based upon these matters of symbolism.
1,000%. 1,000%. Look out, guys. Hey, man, these people are pretty crafty, man. So one thing you're going to have to do is put your thinking cap on. So, but well said, JV. Well said.
Shouts out to Swae. All right, and now we got comments by Mr. Druski, social media personality. I guess that's what you can call him. I didn't know who this guy was prior to the NBA playoffs last year. You know me, I don't really be on Instagram and TikTok like that. So I guess if you are, he's pretty popular apparently. I didn't know who this guy was until I started seeing Samsung like he was in them Google Samsung commercials where the NBA was partnering, and he was in them commercials with Giannis and some of these other people. That's the first time I learned who he was. Since then, I know who he is, and I see that he's kind of a pretty popular guy. He makes good money doing what he does as an internet/social media personality, and he was recently, being discussed because he was in a relationship with another popular internet personality, this chick Ruby Rose. I guess she's like popular, she's big, she has an OnlyFans. I think she does OnlyFans, and she's big on Instagram and all of this other stuff. But apparently these two were in a relationship, and I guess internet troll world was relishing in them being in a relationship. People loved every second of it, I think. But apparently it is not a relationship anymore. They ain't together no more. They are each respectively single. And Druski spoke on his recently new single status. And he said some interesting things that I thought we'd talk about on the channel. So this says Druski gets candid about Rubi Rose breakup. You better have them pockets ready. Ooh. Back in June, Rubi Rose revealed that she and Druski had gone their separate ways following a few months of dating. Again, what does dating even mean? She appeared to be going through it at the time, telling interviewers F Love when asked about her favorite love song and declaring that she was single. A few weeks later, Druski was asked about the split at the BET Awards. He opted not to say much. During a recent appearance on the Big Tigger Morning Show, however, the comedian finally opened up about the breakup. Yeah, I'm single, man, he revealed. God blesses you sometimes with situations. It's a learning situation. That's what it's all about. Druski continued explaining that he simply may not have been ready for the relationship and all that it came with. There wasn't nothing bad that happened, he said. We just, she's a beautiful girl. She's doing great in life, man. She's making money. I'm doing the same. I learned that when you got a bad chick, you can't really, when you have a beautiful woman of that caliber, it comes with a lot. And I don't know if I was prepared yet. Luckily, Druski sees the breakup as a valuable learning experience and plans to use all of his new insight in future relationships. I learned a lot from it. So I think I'm coming out of that relationship. You better have them pockets ready. He also added, I ain't saying that's what happened. You just got to be ready because you don't know when you're going to have to be pulling that wallet out. What do you think of Druski and Rubi was breaking up after months of dating? So there is a link to that, to the audio of that interview in the description of this video via this hot new hip hop article. So if y'all want to hear the audio for that, go ahead and click on the link and you can all listen to that. But I thought that it was interesting that he said you better have your pockets ready, but right before immediately saying, I'm not saying it was about that, but then went on to continue to say you better be financially equipped to deal with the situation.
Yes.
So I thought that this was interesting, ongoing rhetoric with respect to this modern dating setup and all of this talk about fiscal capabilities and money and economic lasting power and all of that good stuff. What did you think of what Druski had to say about his experience being with Rubi Rose and how what he learned from this is you better have them pockets ready?
I agree. I think he learned a very valuable lesson with this situation. Now, and this is coming from not the Druski plateau or the Rubi Rose plateau. This is just everyday life plateau.
Right.
If you plan on having an old lady, you need to be able to afford her. Before I used to kick and scream on that. And you know what I'm saying? Let's make let's make it work. You know what I'm saying? We both headed in the same direction. Let's build together. All that stuff going. I said those things as a young man. Now what I really have gathered is you need to be able to afford her. And that's just for the everyday woman. If y'all at the same job and y'all making around the same amount, you need to be able to afford her. And what I mean by that is she needs to be able to not be working and life needs to still be continuing as is. And if you can't afford that, you're going to have problems. The people that I know that have been who got married and stayed married, and it seems to be doing pretty good, they got good money. The people that I know that got married and, they're trying to make it work, those are the ones that's on ice or split. So I think overall as a principle, I think what guys really need to soak into their brain, whether you think it's fair or not, we're men, we don't care. We shouldn't care what's fair or not.
It doesn't exist. There's no such thing as fair.
I know I'm talking to the wrong. Hey, but there's guys out here hollering foul. I shouldn't be able to pay for that.
Yeah.
Take the L, bro. This is what comes with the territory now. If you want to be in the league, bro, you need to be able to handle your weight. And your weight is being able to pay for a whole nother human. I ain't saying simping out, guys. Come on, man. Follow me. You need to be able to take care of this situation. Not every woman is worth it, so pick wisely. So I'm not saying that, oh, yeah, I'm going to go out here and grab some mega thoughts and start paying them off, because, Dogon said I need to be able to afford this. That's what I'm saying. If you really want a real relationship from a real woman, a quality woman, you still need to be able to afford her. Even if she's still saying, oh, yeah, I can do this. I can still 50-50. You need to be able to afford her. So with all of that stuff being said, Druski dealing with Rubi Rose of all people. Now, mind you, I don't even know who this woman is like that. I just hear the name. I see it circulating. I'll see her like, hey, whoever this is caked up. What's going on here? Oh, that's Rubi Rose. I'm like, oh, okay. That's the name I keep hearing. I don't know who this is. So everybody sees Druski. Everybody see his build. I'm not knocking on the guy. But everybody thought this was hilarious. At least from my perspective, everybody was like, whoa, Druski pulled that. Hey, man, money must be good. You know what I'm saying? So me personally, I already knew this was a comeuppance for her because Druski was getting those Google dollars, doing stuff with NBA, hanging out with Drake, doing everything in between. So it wasn't because he was funny. It wasn't because he was cute. It was because he had a bag. And so once she got close to him and he realized that, hey, man, this girl is costing me money. I'm not saying that's why they broke up, but I'm pretty sure he was realizing that, hey, this is more of an extortion case than love. So I think what he realizes, I mean, look at this woman, look at her eyes. This ain't nothing but a Brittany Renner going on. So for him to cake up a woman, wife her down, and think that this was going to be something, a good thing he didn't drop a jet with this one. All right. So he got out relatively unscathed, and he got a nice notch on his belt. Everybody could say at least he hit that. But from here on out, man, I'm pretty sure hopefully he did take heed and learn the right kind of lesson, and not trick off again with whoever is trying to exploit him for his dollars. But it's a fine line to tote. But I would just say overall, the message is, brothers, if you want a woman nowadays, we just talked about the economy in the last one, bro. Trust me, they're paying attention too. The ladies, that is. And they look at you as a job opportunity. They don't look for love. I'm not talking about all women. I'm talking about the Ruby Roses. All right, ladies. So I ain't talking about you right now watching the conscience. You're watching the conscience first. Why would you do that? I'm talking about the Ruby Roses of the world. But what you say, JV Wins? Do you agree with Druski here that if you're just out here in the dating market or you're trying to date a Ruby Rose or an everyday woman, you got to keep them pockets ready? What are your thoughts about this?
In a vacuum, I do agree. I've always contended that in order for a man to be able to successfully date today, he must have three things. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, this is JV Wynn's opinion. Okay, so in my opinion, in order for a man to be able to successfully date today, he should have three things. One is a roof over his head that he pays for, and he's not rooming with people or sharing rent, living with relatives or roommates. He has to have his own roof over his head that he is able to maintain for himself.
Yes.
Two, he must have reliable transportation. You need to have your car. You need to be able to get around. You need to be able to get from point A to point B whenever you want at any given time, no matter what. You got to have the whip game. You got to have transportation that's reliable. You can't be in and out of Tires Plus or your local mechanic shop because you got to replace an alternator, or you need a new battery all the time, or you need new spark plugs. No, you need to be on point. You need to have your transportation, and you need to be able to afford to maintain your transportation, the maintenance on it, so that it's always in operable condition. The third thing every guy needs is a hefty amount of discretionary income, which means after you've paid all of those bills, after you have paid for the maintenance on that vehicle that you own, after you've paid that mortgage, or after you've paid that rent, you are not scraping until you get the next re-up on the paycheck. You still have a decent amount of discretionary income to play around with, and you're not worrying about spending too much here or there, and now you're cash strapped for the next 5 or 6 days until you get your next paycheck. So those to me have always been the three primary qualifications that every guy needs. If you can meet those three qualifications, I think that you can be out here in the world dating without having to worry about literally not having the prerequisites needed to be successful, like literally. So from that standpoint, needing to have your pockets ready does make sense. However, here's what I will say. I do believe that there is a such thing as vagina inflation. We just got finished talking about economic inflation with the last topic. Yes. There's also a such thing as vagina inflation.
Yes.
And vagina inflation operates very much in the same way that economic inflation does.
Indeed.
So let's talk about economic inflation. Economic inflation is when the cost of goods and services far exceeds the rate at which people earn a living. So in other words, the rate at which people earn a living has not risen commensurately with the cost of goods and services. Mm-hmm. That's when you get inflation. A bag of potato chips used to cost $2. You used to make $2 an hour. Now a bag of potato chips costs $5, and you're only making $2.50 an hour. That's what that's kind of the bare bones, explanation for inflation. Vagina inflation operates very much in the same manner. A woman who used to be a 6 or better 10 years ago used to operate on those 3 qualifiers. Now in 2024, like, okay, what are we in 2024? So I would say in 2014, a guy could have discretionary income, a roof over his head, and reliable transportation that he can readily afford, and he can bag himself reliably a 6 or better without having to worry about issues or problems or any sorts of other entanglements. 10 years later in 2024, the price tag has gone up. So now you need more than those 3 things. You need more than that. And for an individual like Druski to say you better have them pockets ready, to me, those comments speak to his belief that at the time that he was dealing with this chick, financially, he was not equipped. That's what that says to me. Is that not what that says to you?
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me. So I looked up their respective net worths. According to the latest information that I was able to find on the interwebs, as of 2024, Ruby Rose has a net worth of $4 million. Druski, as of 2024, has a net worth of $5 million. Now, I am not a mathematician, but last time I checked, 5 is a bigger number than 4. So he out-earns her in terms of net worth, $5 million to $4 million. He has a $1 million net worth greater than her. His net worth is $1 million greater than hers. Yet he still was of the belief that financially he was not prepared for what came along with being with a woman of that caliber. Of that caliber in that world, in the Instagram model, hip hop, NBA, NFL world, where essentially you're paying for women.
Yes.
So despite the fact that he has a net worth of $1 million more than her, he nevertheless felt as though he was not prepared to financially bring what he needed to bring to the table in order to sustain himself, juxtaposed to being with her. And that is nothing but vagina inflation to me. Because if you're worth $1 million more than her, how far up, how much has the price on that increased to the point where that's now no longer enough, where it no longer suffices? So I think all guys need to take heed of this. I still believe at the end of the day that those are the 3 main things that you need. But very much like you suggested, I do think that there is a such thing as vagina inflation. And I think that the price tag for women 10 years ago is not the price tag for women today.
Hell no.
Whether she is Ruby Rose or whether she works at a cash register at Walmart, it doesn't matter. It is still the same. The price of these chicks has risen in a manner that is not commensurate with the way that these dudes are bringing in money, which is why a lot of these chicks are out here sharing the same guys, because the percentage of men whose incomes have been able to rise commensurate with the cost of vagina is a very small percentage of the overall population. And we've touched on this channel before. This is why a lot of these women deal with guys who have multiple options, dudes who step out. These guys got women here, women there. You know, it didn't work out because he was dealing with other women. It's because you guys are sharing the same men.
Right.
You're sharing the same men because it's a small percentage of guys whose incomes have been able to rise commensurate with the cost of vagina. Vagina has inflated just like regular economic inflation is taking place. It's the same principle. Literally, it's the same bell curve. It behaves in the same way. So, you know, I don't really have a solution for this other than, hey, man, listen, guys, be patient. You know, you got to play a long game. If you're not somebody who comes into money quick because you're a pro athlete or you're an entertainer, and you're doing it the traditional route, schooling, apprenticeships, certificates, licensees, you know, you're trying to do it the brick and mortar way, you're playing a long game. In all likelihood, you're probably going to come into the most money you've ever earned when you're in your mid 40s, probably not mid to late 40s, even early 50s. And if you're not getting with a woman earlier in life, you know, maybe you meet a chick in high school or you meet her in college and y'all are in the same place. And so you truly can build something together. If you're not doing that and you're getting out here into this dating world post-college in your late 20s and into your 30s and you're a single person and you're just out here trying to date, just recognize that you're playing the long game. and you're going to have to figure out a way to be able to compete with vagina inflation, because the cost of it is rising at a steady pace, and the pace at which you're earning your income, if you're not careful, is going to fall sorely behind. So I would say just keep that in mind. And I think that's what Druski is talking about.
Yeah, I agree, bro. And I say, as far as women are concerned, like the reason why, and now, ladies, you know, and gentlemen, all right, I'm not sitting here saying that women are gold diggers and they
Correct.
can't.
Yeah. You're absolutely. No. You're absolutely right. I'm gonna let you finish, but let me. I cannot stress that enough. I like these points are not saying women are only about money.
Correct.
Women are gold digging this, and women are chasing bags, and all they care about is money. That's not the point. Correct. Because that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there is always a rise in the price of goods and services, period. It just is what it is. It's the natural ebb and flow of life. It just is what it is. Like Fat Joe said, yesterday's price is not today's price. That's literally what this is. So you don't necessarily have to be a gold digger per se.
Right.
It's just everything costs more now.
Right.
So like, if a guy is going to take you out, it's funny. We touched on Cheesecake Factory. Remember that viral thing going on several months ago where the chick was disappointed because the dude was taking her out on a date to the Cheesecake Factory. And so there was it created this whole thing about people debating back and forth on the internet and social media. What is the relative worth of a date at the Cheesecake Factory? 10 years ago, a date at the Cheesecake Factory meant something.
That was legit, bro. Olive Garden meant something back then.
like that's the point that I'm trying to make here. 10 years ago, a date at the Cheesecake Factory meant something.
Boy, it did.
Now, depending on who you talk to, taking somebody to the Cheesecake Factory for a date is no different than going to Applebee's. Now, granted, you'll have some women who are wholesome out there and who are grounded and who are like, I don't mind if we go to a coffee for our first date or go to Cheesecake Factory. Yes. Salute to y'all women out there. I respect you and I appreciate you.
100.
But nevertheless, inflation is real. Vagina inflation is a real thing. It just is. And 10 years ago, the woman who would have been impressed by a date at the Cheesecake Factory is now looking at you saying, is this it?
Yep.
And that's not calling her a gold digger. It's just saying everything goes up.
Right.
Okay. Groceries go up. Gas goes up. Car maintenance goes up. Car insurance goes up. Mortgages go up. Rent goes up. Women go up too.
Yes.
And that's not being disparaging. It's just saying everything goes up.
Correct. And so yeah, I agree with that. So again, not to say that women are gold diggers, and not to say that women are something to be commodified with money. What the point I'm trying to stress here is that women historically, I would say, always look for security. They look for security. Women they're all over the internet saying we need to be protected by men. We need to be protected by men. Protection by men is more than physical. So it's physical, it's mental, and it's financial now. So the game has been rigged, guys, to where they got men out here working instead of being warriors. So the new form of security and overhead means money. The game got shifted. So westernized culture, this way of labor and employment has shifted things from survival of physical nature, from warfare and other things, to working. Do you have enough money to make sure that I'm secure? Do you have enough money to make sure I can eat later? Do you have enough money to make sure that there's a roof over my head and a child's head? So whenever they're talking to a man, they're evaluating how much you can keep them secure. The game has changed to now that you keeping a woman secure means you also have to have money, because it's a money game out here. What you going to do? Not make money? So women are going, hey, the security rules have changed. So we've upped it to, hey, and make sure that I'm safe. Just look at it like real caveman stuff. and that you have to make sure that you have a cave to take your woman to, away from the saber-tooths, away from the other clowns outside. You have to make sure that you have her protected. But now that cave costs $1,200 a month, $1,500 a month, $2,200 a month. You can't just walk into a cave anymore. You used to be able to walk into a cave. If this guy wasn't enough brute strength for you, you can whoop his ass, kick him out, and then take his woman and have your woman. You can't do that nowadays. You have to financially do that now. So the game has shifted. So women are seeking security from men. And now the new security is finances. Are you educated? Like you said, do you have your own car? Can you take me around? Do you have a house that you can take me to? Or do you have a roommate? That's not secure to me. He could be a weirdo. So they're looking for security. So women are, so that's why they say, protect us. We need protection. All that stuff is more than physical, guys. So since the game has shifted, since Druski only makes $5 million, or has $5 million net worth, and she has $4 million, when you do the percentages, he ain't got that much more than her. So he's just making, like, if this is every day and me and her worked at the same job, I'm just making $2K more a month. $2K more a check or whatever, or a year or whatever. I'm not making that much more than her. So she has a lifestyle already for $4 million. She picked Druski so she can live a $4 million lifestyle for free. He can't afford that. A ball player making $25 million can a year, not his net worth. He's making $25 million a year. He can afford a Ruby Rose. So her security has been heightened due to her level of income. So she needs more security. She needs $4 million worth of security. That's a hell of an insurance policy, boy. You're going to have to pay for that. And $1 million, $1 million net worth ain't enough to take care of that. So he was starting to feel the burn. Golly, she want a Birkin bag too? I didn't even know how much Birkins cost. All them things, $200,000. And I'm pretty sure he did something like that where he dropped $50K. Turned around again, dropped another 60. Hey man, I'm getting these checks, but I ain't made out of money. So my whole thing is that guys, so from my opening statement, translating over security is actually money. When you're making just a little bit more than your woman, she knows it. She feels it. And she wants more. You see what's going on in this economy? So you want more protection financially. So much so people getting so riled up about voting. Hey, I want to make sure that I got more money coming in later. Everybody wants this security. Yeah. So women's security was always in a man. So men have to afford the women on top of the inflation, hence the vagina inflation. So hey guys, so there's only one way we can do this. Or there's two ways. You can complain and make red pill content all day, which is fine. But I'm telling you right now, that's not getting you more money or security.
It's not.
or you can be a man and realize that the world can be against you. You're going to have to pay for her, the child, and then you come last. And so whether you like that or not, that's the name of this game. And the more money you make, the more cachet you got. And last thing I'll say is that if you are a man that makes, let's say, like I said, her net worth is $4 million, and an NBA player, he makes $25 million a year. He can afford that. Not only can he afford that, he can afford another one, and probably two more Ruby Roses. Not the fact that he needs a Ruby Rose, but what I'm saying is he's got the capital to make sure that he's straight out here. So my whole thing is, guys, buckle up. The economy is getting worse. You're going to have to get more creative. So basically look at it like warfare. So you can sit there and cry when your village is getting raided by invaders, which is basically making red pill content. Or you can grab your sword and whoop ass. basically go out there and make the bag yourself. I choose to go out there and make the bag myself to make sure that I can afford this inflation. So, ladies, I ain't calling you gold diggers. Brothers, I ain't calling you simps. And I'm not saying I'm a simp, even though some people might want to say that I is. But I'm telling you right now, the man that can afford a woman's got a woman. And the man that can't is out here hurting. So get your bread up, bro. And yeah, man, Druski learned the hard way and the expensive way, I'm sure. So he better get a woman that's net worth of 50K. He'll blow her brain out. Yeah, because at that point, he exceeded her whole year's salary with one bag. But Ruby Rose can get that 50K stipend whenever she decides to open a DM. So he's not blowing her away. So hey, take a step down, afford what you can, bro. You can't afford the premium package, but you damn sure can get the basic. So go for it, Druski. But yeah, man, wild stuff, man. Wild stuff.
Hey, man, vagina inflation is a real thing.
It is, man.
I'm not saying that to be derogatory. You know, I don't care what word you want to use. Vagina inflation, woman inflation, dating inflation, female. I don't give a damn what words you use. It exists. The cost of everything goes up. The cost of everything goes up. Shouts out to all of the ladies out there who are like, I don't really care about that. But at the end of the day, I think that this is just the way of the world, and I don't think that it's unreasonable, because it's no more unreasonable than economic inflation. We don't like it, but we have to deal with it. We got to deal with the rising cost of all goods and services. Everything just costs more.
Yep. You know? And if people like to, you know, tip the scale, you know, in the favor of men because of the double standards that men, you know, got the luxury of having, that comes with a price, bro. And you gotta pay. Yeah, you gotta pay, bro. That's the trade-off. But once you pay, bro, you can have whatever you want. So make sure you got the cash to be the boss, man. So yeah, man, it's wild stuff.
Yeah, good luck, Druski, man. You're not alone in the fight, bro. Yeah, be more strategic with who you date and what their tax bracket is. I think
seriously. Yeah, bro. Go get a basic. Yeah. You'll blow your brains out, bro.
You'll be more successful. Go date you 100,000 there, and you won't have these problems.
Swae.
All right, next up we got Tiffany Haddish, who is receiving backlash because she posted on the TikTok a video going through the grocery store over in
Zimbabwe.
Where was she? Was in Zimbabwe. Yeah. So she's in Zimbabwe, and she posted a video to TikTok, you know, amazed because I guess she didn't know that there were grocery stores in Zimbabwe. And, you know, she received a lot of backlash from people who felt as though she was being disrespectful, distasteful. You know, she's dealing with a lot of backlash as a result of this TikTok video. So first we will discuss the story of the backlash, and then we will play the actual video so you can see what all the hoopla is about. But this says Tiffany Haddish defends Zimbabwe grocery store TikTok video after backlash. Tiffany Haddish has responded to a backlash over a video she posted on TikTok in which she excitedly showed the folk back home that there are grocery stores in Zimbabwe. In the nearly 5-minute video uploaded Sunday, the comedian and actress films herself entering a supermarket. In the course of the video, the Girls Trip star shows her followers the different items on sale and sections of the store, including organic strawberries, meat, a frozen food section, sanitary products, trash bags, cornflakes, pet food, cash registers, and even a caution wet floor sign. She then puts on a squeaky voice saying, oh, they got an inaudible store, before saying in her own voice, I just like demystifying shit. Many social media users took her excitement at face value. Tiffany Haddish is surprised that there is a grocery store in Africa. What's wrong with these people? One ex-user wrote in a post Sunday. On Monday, Haddish replied to the post saying, we have been lied to. That's what's wrong. Another ex-user wrote, Tiffany, this ain't the time to be a comedian, with another adding to the chain saying, what part was meant to be funny? Haddish replied to this comment saying, "None of it, just showing my hood they was wrong." Zimbabwean influencer Plot Mako, I hope I'm saying that right, defended the comedian's video, telling CNN on Tuesday, "I think many people who criticized Tiffany Haddish's video might have missed the dark humor and jest in it. As a comedian, her portrayal reflects a widely held negative perception about some African countries, providing a satirical take on the reality." Mako, who is also an arts administrator and journalist, added that Haddish's reaction highlights how many Westerners have limited knowledge about Africa, but also how the media generally portrays Africa, and said her comedic portrayal can spark conversations about the need for a more nuanced and informed understanding of the continent. In a thread on X, a user named Tinashe M, whose location is set to Africa, also expressed support for the comedian, saying on Monday, "Tiffany Haddish was right to be surprised by the grocery store in Zimbabwe," adding, "She definitely shouldn't be called ignorant." He then went on to refer to data from Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce that estimates the informal economy to make up around 64.1% of GDP, as well as 2022 research from Boston Consulting Group that says that on average, African consumers buy more than 70% of their food, beverages, and personal care products from small and independent shops. This indicates that modern large format retail stores are not so common that you would expect a celebrity who lives 10,000 miles away to know they exist in the country, he added in the thread. CNN has reached out to Haddish's representative for comment. All right, so there you go. That's some of the people who were thinking that her video wasn't funny. And there are people who are actually based in Africa who are saying that the backlash is a bit heavy-handed. So here is the video in question. So we'll go ahead and play this.
Look at that.
Here is Tiffany Haddish showing how there's a grocery store in Zimbabwe, and she's like, "Look at all of the funny, shiny things in this grocery store in Africa."
I mean, some of our grocery stuff so delicious, but not the crystal cups. This is the hardware section too. Light bulbs, stuff to grill, clean the grill, cookies, appliances. Excuse me. Stationery, sweets, toys. Hygiene stuff here, bath, soaps. They call Vaseline Eagles, sanitary napkins, bubble bath. They got the mouthwash on deck. They got the soaps on deck, toothpaste on deck. All the paper towels and toilet paper. Look at this. Grocery store. Look, they got buckets and pots and trash bags and cleaning bird feed. Look, millet, bird seeds. You got pet birds, we gonna feed them. They got dog food, the cat food, cleaning products. They got the cat food and dog food and the treats. And who knew? They got the U tabloid magazine over here. What's this in blackface? The fuck? Oh, that's not blackface. That's not black. It looked like blackface from this. He got a hairy face. My bad. But yeah, they even got tabloids. I'm probably not an Indian. Oh wait. Charlotte turns her back on Bud. Oh damn. They talking about the. But look, they got the gossip too. Okay, they want the tea just like anybody else. They got the cornflakes. That look like the old type of cornflakes back in the day. Registers. Beep, beep, beep. Ain't no different house. They even got the caution wet floor. Oh, yeah. Y'all have a good one. Grocery store.
You ain't gonna buy nothing? You doing all that talking?
All right, there you go.
The hell?
Caution, wet floors in the registers.
Jeez Louise.
So yeah, so she's having to respond to people saying that this was too much. But what do you think about this? Do you think that what do you think of that video? Do you think that the backlash is too much? What do you make of this situation?
I think it was ignorant. So I think it was coming from a spot of ignorance. I think she was surprised. So she wanted to show everybody else that hey, you know, they got it popping over here in Africa, you know, because they have a grocery store. And so I think that her negative perception of, and this is the part about whoever was capping in that article, basically trying to explain her ignorance. See, ignorance isn't always a bad thing. You just don't know what's going on. And if your ignorance was due to westernized media and how they portray Africa, then you're ignorant. So this, to me, spoke to her ignorance. There was another way to do this, even if you were surprised that Zimbabwe or Africa has grocery stores. There was a way that she could have did it of, hey guys, you know, y'all thought that, you know, Africa, you know, wasn't, I don't know, modern enough or whatever, you know, well, check this out. You know, Africa, you know, they're developing or whatever. She could have just did it in another way instead of acting so surprised. And there was another thing in there where, you know, I guess you could see the satirical nature and how she carries herself, but I don't think she knows how to be anything else. So I just think that overall her ignorance was showing, and I think that's where the backlash came from. Not that ignorance is always a bad thing, all right, but in this context, it just showed where you know, her mind is or was. One thing that I don't care for, though, however, is that people are correlating grocery stores with civilization, development, and being better. Big brick buildings shaped like squares, concrete on the ground instead of grass. You know, big old light poles instead of trees. To me, that's savage. I think America's savage. I think that what's going on here is savage. And if it wasn't savage, we wouldn't have plastic floating in the ocean. We wouldn't be having endangered species all over the place. There wouldn't be needs to shut certain things down during certain seasons so people stop shooting certain animals. All right. So whether people would like to think that westernized culture is actually, air quote, civilized, I would beg to differ. There's nothing civil about how America is able to be so lax when you have to torture the rest of the world in order for you to get what you got. So America in itself is not a developed country, if you will. And when it comes to not being savage, and I think with the rest of the world trying to keep up with the savage nature of the West, they will in turn become more savage. They will in turn become more wasteful. They will in turn leave plastics and stuff in the ocean and follow in the path of. So there's two ways to look at this. One, you can look at it in the aspect of, hey man, yeah, of course. Because I already knew Africa had things popping, big cities, metropolitans, grocery stores, malls, you name it. Everything that's going on here in America is going on in Africa. So that's good to know. But then the other aspect of it is I've also seen what the West can do and what it has done to the rest of the world in order for it to be the way that it is. And in order for it to be the way that it is, there needs to be people working for next to nothing, whether it's in another country or now robots to do it. So all in all, yes, it's nice to see that they got something clean that they can look at and do all this other good stuff and even have the tabloids in there. But I would just pump the brakes on anybody that thinks that is civilized stuff. And I think that mimicking the West is how you become the West. And becoming the West, we're seeing what's happening now to it. So I think there's better ways to do things. And I think that Miss Tiffany Haddish here, I think she had a life lesson that she learned. And I'm pretty sure she educated a lot of other people too, especially people that are her fans or whatever. So her ignorance gave some people some insight. But just because she was ignorant in this situation doesn't always necessarily mean a bad thing. So I just take this similar in the same vein of Gilbert Arenas that we covered last week, of them just saying stuff because they have a negative perspective on Africans, and then they want to let the world know about that. So me personally, I knew that Africans was popping. I knew they had things going on. So no surprise here. But what are your thoughts on Miss Tiffany Haddish going over to Zimbabwe, finding out they got grocery stores and letting the world know as if, well, they didn't. Apparently, some people didn't. You feel like the backlash is warranted or not?
I don't. I kind of feel bad for her because she was just in there and she put this TikTok out. I think in her mind, what she was doing was she was shedding some light to the rest of the ignorant Western world on what's going on in Zimbabwe. Maybe she didn't go about doing it in the best way, but there was nothing nefarious about what she did, in my opinion, albeit I do think that it was ignorant because she was ignorant. She didn't know Zimbabwe had grocery stores. And I got news for you. Neither did I. I am not the foremost expert on Zimbabwe. So it's not that I didn't think they had them, but I also didn't know they did. However, I can also say that on a day-to-day basis, I am not doing my research on what's going on in Zimbabwe. I'm not. So, whether they have grocery stores in Zimbabwe is not top of mind for me. And if I see a video on any platform where somebody is walking through a grocery store exclaiming what's happening in this Zimbabwean grocery store, I'm going to be like, oh, that's kind of cool. I didn't realize that they had grocery stores that look pretty much the same as the grocery store around the corner from my house. I didn't know that was taking place. Therefore, my ignorance in that regard is alleviated. So I don't necessarily, from that standpoint, think that what she did was the worst thing in the world. Unfortunately, she is now a meat shield for everyone else who didn't know what was going on in Zimbabwe when it comes to grocery stores, myself included. Maybe she could have gone about it in a different way in terms of how she presented it, because that's where I will agree with you. If it was me, I would have done it differently. I wouldn't have made the video acting like I just discovered oil, for the first time, right? Like I wouldn't have recorded the video where my tone is like, oh my God, I just discovered this thing that I didn't know existed in the world. I would have done it like that. I probably would have just been like, hey, yo, like I'm over here in Zimbabwe. Check this out, man. I'm rocking in the grocery store. Look at what they got going on. The tone of it would have been different. And maybe maybe with a different tone, it wouldn't have rubbed certain people the wrong way. But overall, I still kind of think that the backlash is heavy-handed to the point where CNN has to reach out to her representatives for comment. Like, what are we doing here? Like, what? I think that that's a bit too far. But that's just my opinion. And the last thing that I'll say is a general rule that I like to stick to when it comes to how outraged I need to be about something is how offended are the individuals to whom the thing is speaking of. So, for example, I knew for a fact that Washington Redskins was offensive because actual Native Americans were telling me it was. So it's not like you had these holier than thou allied white people, social justice warriors, running around telling me how offensive something is, and I'm supposed to believe you. You don't come from that community. You're just trying to whitewash your guilt. I don't give a damn about what your opinion is. But there were actual Native Americans who were like, we don't like it. It's offensive. It needs to go away. And, the community put a lot of pressure on it. Eventually, it ran away, rightfully so. Same thing with Cleveland Indians. Actual Native Americans were saying, we don't like this. So I knew there must be something wrong with this. Actual Native Americans are telling me there's a problem with it. I don't get as bent out of shape about Florida State Seminoles. Number one, because I went there, so I have a bias. But also, number two, the Seminole tribe of Florida, as far as I know, is okay with it. They're cool with it. They're in partnership with the university. They do things in the community together. They're not upset or angry or hollering about how bad or ignorant it is. I'm pretty sure that there are factions within that community that don't necessarily like it, but the tenor of the conversation around it isn't such that overall the voices coming from that community are telling me there's a problem with this. If that were the case, then I would feel differently. And that's kind of the same approach that I'm going to take with this. If I start to hear more people living in Zimbabwe, more people in and around the African or South African area, people who are entrenched in these communities saying we don't like this kind of stuff, then at that point I'm going to be like, all right, we need to call this kind of stuff out for how reprehensible it actually is. But to this point, I haven't heard much of that. So really what she said may have been ignorant, sure, but the backlash to me is a bit much. In my opinion, I think it's a little too much. I don't think she should have to apologize. Certainly, in my opinion, I don't think there's anything she needs to give out a statement apologizing for anything over if it comes to that. But at the same time, I can also acknowledge it did come from a place of ignorance, but I can throw myself in that boat as well. I did not know that there were grocery stores that look like that in Zimbabwe, in part because I'm not a historian on it. I don't think about it on a daily basis. I didn't know that. But based on that video, that place looked just like the Publix around the corner from my house. And so from that standpoint, I was very much ignorant too. The tone of my video, if I were to do such a thing, the tone of it would be different. So I guess I can hold her accountable for the tone of her TikTok. But I don't necessarily think that that's enough for everybody to be like seeking retribution for this cardinal sin that she committed. I don't know if it's that much of a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, and all that's fair. And and as I stated, I think it was ignorant, but not all ignorance is bad. I think the word ignorant has a negative connotation to it.
It does, yeah.
And but to me, this was ignorant. And but also it's just that it's also who the messenger is. Which is why it's coming off a little harsher, I would say, for people who do have something to say about it, because Tiffany Haddish historically has had, I say, a reputation for being a industry person over her own people. With her in her movies, always dating white men, or on her comedy routine, making stuff where it's about white men. And so she already comes off as a person that's not in tune with her own people. Hence the reason why her not knowing that Zimbabwe could have grocery stores. See, there's a difference here. So yeah, if I ask you, now I can just pick a random country in Africa and say, hey man, does the Republic of Congo have a grocery store? You would probably say, well, hell, I don't know. And then my follow-up question was, would you be surprised if they had one? You'd probably tell me no. And it's the same thing here with Zimbabwe. So yeah, I know that what you're getting at, because it was a store, it looked like a CVS or Walgreens up in there. You know what I'm saying? All the aisles zoned up. It looked real nice up in there. All blocked. Whatever retail store you worked at.
It looked like Publix to me. It looked like Publix. For real.
Yeah. And so and so for any situation, I was just saying, me personally, did I personally know that there was one in Zimbabwe? No. Am I surprised is there one in Zimbabwe? No. And so I would just say this, my ignorance of a lot of things in Africa got cured through research and just looking up anything on the country. And so you'll see some stuff here, see some stuff there, to go that, whatever's going on here in America is, for the most part, is going on in Africa. So yeah, man, you'll see stuff, all kinds of things online or in documentaries or whatever, whenever they're showing things that's going on in Africa or what have you. They will show it in a certain light and they won't show other things. Last thing I'll say is that also there's other things that's going on in Africa that a lot of our people here in the West are ignorant towards. Revolutions, certain types of political uprisings for the positive or anything else that doesn't get any airtime or any publicity. You know, a lot of people would like to look at Africa here in the West and feel as though that they're either incapable. They look at it like slavery in a sense to where, oh man, the slaves just didn't fight. They just took it all. And people just look at Africa like, oh man, they just can't get it together. They just can't figure it out. And if you really look at the political landscape of what's going on in Africa, you would see that a lot of these situations where people feel like they can't get their act together, whether it's policies or politics or what have you, these are intentional. And there's either one or multiple countries that are intimately involved, making sure those people stay destabilized. So with all that stuff being said, yes, there are images on Africa that you see that are not appealing. But I will also argue that whoever owns that media network that's showing you that is only invested in showing you that. And they're not showing the hands in the pot that's making sure those people stay that way. So there's always a hand pushing the domino, guys. If you see a domino on the ground, it didn't fall there by accident. So I would just tell people today, man, just do more research, about Africa. If you love your people, if you love, whatever's going on, it doesn't hurt to watch a YouTube video here and there from people that are locals or from whatever country, and get your game up. You don't have to have a doctorate or PhD in it. Just be aware of the things that Black people are doing and are capable of doing in Africa, and I think it would surprise a lot of people. So Tiffany Haddish, she's normally on my short list. Today I'm low-key giving her a pass because the ignorance that she has here is the ignorance of a lot of people that here in the West. So and maybe she did educate a few people. So I think her post actually is probably going to do more good than harm. So, but tighten up, guys, and do some research out there. I don't know everything, but I damn sure won't be surprised by anything my Africans are doing either. I'd say that.
I think if you were to tell me that there was a grocery store in the Republic of Congo, I would be surprised. Honestly. But again, that's my ignorance.
Fair.
So I would be surprised. I would be surprised. And is that true? No, because there are grocery stores in the Republic of Congo. But without me doing research, I would assume that the Republic of Congo does not have grocery stores. So I just think that there's stuff that goes all the way around with this. So a person can call me out for my ignorance too. It is what it is. What movie does Tiffany Haddish date a white guy in? I'm unaware of this. What movie is that?
I don't watch any of her stuff, but I think she was in some bridal movie or something like that. I know for sure the one where she was dealing with Cat Williams, where she had the little mixed baby and he was like, whose baby is that? And she was like, it's yours. But she was sleeping with the white security guard. Like, she does stuff like that. I think it was the women's version of Hangover. I think she was in that. I don't watch her stuff, but I know for sure that, the APB out on her is that she does a lot of comedy, kind of Amy Schumerish, but with white men.
Okay,
and, that's her.
Yeah, let me, somebody in the comments, put that in the comments. What movie is that? I didn't know Tiffany Haddish was in a movie. Not that there's an issue with it. I'm just curious. I don't follow her stuff either. But to your point about the presentation of regions, I mean, they do that here. I mean, if you don't maintain a balanced understanding of where to get your information from, you'll think that the entire city of Chicago is one giant episode of The Chi.
Warzone.
You think the whole city is an episode of the Tommy Power show. I think they do that show in Chicago. You think that was the whole city, but the city of Chicago is actually quite lovely, if I must say so myself. So, the media does that kind of stuff all the time. I think understanding how to measure your consumption of media in general is a valuable lesson that everybody needs to, take heed of, for sure.
Yeah, and just diversify your studies out there, peoples. Trust me, I'm always trying to alleviate some type of ignorance. I probably said 5 ignorant things throughout this broadcast. So so it always helps to try to find out new things that you never knew before. So there's nothing wrong with being ignorant. There's a problem of being willfully ignorant. So no harm, no foul there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. And next up, we have Grant Hill and Jalen Brown. Grant Hill is suggesting that Jalen Brown is a conspiracy theorist or believes in conspiracy theories because Jalen Brown is kind of trying to. Jalen Brown is attempting to rationalize why he was kept off of the United States men's basketball Olympic team. So, for anybody who is unaware, the men's national team is over in Paris competing in the Olympics. The team originally had Kawhi Leonard on it, which did not make any sense to me. This guy couldn't play at all in the playoffs, cracked his knee like he does every year. How in the hell was it? We need to do a separate video on even why that happened, okay? Because that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But rightfully so, Kawhi Leonard was sent home because he's hurt, because he's always hurt. And in his place, they replaced him with Derek White. Derek White, a role player, swingman, 3-and-D guy who plays for the Celtics. And people kind of went crazy because they felt like he should have been replaced with Jalen Brown. Jalen Brown has been low-key suggesting that there was collusion which prevented him from being put on the team because according to Jalen Brown, Nike has a heavy influence on the men's Olympic team. Jalen Brown is not a Nike athlete. Apparently, I don't know if Derek White is or isn't, but I know Jalen Brown is not. And so Jalen Brown is suggesting that because he's not a Nike athlete, he was left off the team. That's where the conspiracy angle comes in. And now Grant Hill is dismissing the conspiracy angle, saying the reason why they went with Derek White over Jalen Brown is purely for basketball reasons, because of the fit, because Derek White is the better fit on Team USA instead of Jalen Brown. So here is the explanation of that, this article here. So this says, after Grant Hill takes aim at Jalen Brown, Celtic star responds. Just hours before Team USA's matchup against Serbia in the 2024 Paris Olympics, Boston Celtic star Jalen Brown clapped back at Grant Hill for seemingly labeling the 27-year-old a conspiracy theorist. So here's the tweet here from Jalen Brown. It says, Grant Hill calling me a conspiracy theorist is disappointing. I've been a VP since I was 21 years old. I have a great understanding. Brown is referring to comments that Hill, the managing director of Team USA, made on the Dan Patrick Show a few days back. We'll go ahead and not play that clip because it's not all that paramount to the point of this. So it goes on to say, this is an excerpt from Grant Hill's comments on Dan Patrick Show. I spoke to Brown's agent, Grant said, when discussing the decision to replace an injured Kawhi Leonard with Derek White in lieu of Brown. I don't know if that was before or after things went out on Twitter, but yeah, I think this idea that there's a conspiracy theory, I always love a good conspiracy theory, but it was really truly a basketball decision, and these are tough decisions. The former University of California, Berkeley standout who played the best basketball of his pro career in the 2024 NBA playoffs is not a member of the national team, despite earning Eastern Conference Finals MVP and Finals MVP during the Boston's title run. 3 Celtics, Drew Holiday, Jason Tatum, and White, are representing the United States in Paris. Tatum and Holiday were both in the 2020 iteration of Team USA, which went on to win the country a gold medal. The duo averaged a combined 27 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists per game during the national team stint in Tokyo. So, Grant Hill is kind of being dismissive towards Jalen Brown's assertion that he was left off the team because he's not a Nike player, which is what the conspiracy, if you want to use that word, I think conspiracy is strong. I don't think that's an accurate representation of what's going on here. But they said it, not me. Grant Hill used the word conspiracy. So that's what he said. So he's going to have to eat that. But what do you make of Grant Hill's explanation that it wasn't anything other than basketball to replace Kawhi Leonard with Derek White instead of Jalen Brown?
I didn't like it. I didn't like Grant Hill's explanation. When I heard his explanation, I too was disappointed. I grew up a Grant Hill fan, even though he went to Duke. I just thought the guy was the consummate professional. He always held himself the right way. He always conducted himself the right way. Married man with children. Just a solid stand-up dude. It appeared up and down. And I was always a person who said that if this dude never got hurt, what this career would have looked like. But the guy was an absolute hooper, in my opinion. So he always had my respect. So to see him play politician through this Olympic situation has been thoroughly disappointing. He's clearly like a spokesperson. He's well spoken, so I'll handle it. Or hey, Grant, why don't you handle that? And he just goes out there and talks his talk, and he's talking real company man stuff. One of his arguments of why they didn't have Jaylen Brown on the team was because he realized that Bam and Anthony Davis was a good combo together, and they had enough fours on the team. They had enough fours on the team, and I was like, okay. And for those of you who don't know, four is a power forward
in the traditional sense.
In the traditional sense, okay.
Yeah.
Jaylen Brown does not play the four. So he's a 2 or a 3. So he's a shooting guard or a small forward. All right. You can stretch him out to the 4. I wouldn't be surprised if you could, but you're stretching him out to play small ball. So that's not his position anyway. So one of his arguments of why they didn't bring him on the team was laughable. Kawhi Leonard doesn't play a 4. So Derek White doesn't play the 3 that replaces Kawhi. I understood from the aspect of them adding Derek White because I think Derek White is an excellent basketball player. They could say he's the 5th guy on the Celtics. I would say that he was the 3rd most important person after Jaylen Brown and Jrue Holiday. So I hold Derek White to a very high esteem. I'll take him on any one of my teams any day of the week.
Absolutely.
So I don't have a problem with him being an Olympian. However, once you look at the rest of the roster and how the rest of the roster is constructed, they're just grabbing the best of. And if you're just grabbing the best of, why not grab the Finals MVP and the Eastern Conference MVP? The guy can play defense and he can play offense. What's the big deal here? So it's not a 1-for-1 for Kawhi, but it's not a bad drop off, when Kawhi's healthy. So I didn't like Grant Hill's excuse for why they did this. I didn't care for him asserting that Jaylen's a conspiracy theorist. I felt like that was a 4-letter word, calling him that, from professional to professional, part of their brotherhood and stuff like that. Calling him a conspiracy theorist is kind of labeling this man. And I don't care for that label, especially where he's at. And like Jaylen said, hey man, I've been vice president, since he was 21. But I will tell you this, that Jaylen is a very outspoken man. He stood up for Kyrie when Kyrie was getting the railroad. And when Jaylen Brown got that big old contract, he was saying that he was going to use that money to help build a Black Wall Street. Okay, this guy doesn't play by the rules, is what I'm getting at. He's doing his own thing. And which is kind of surprising why they gave him Eastern Conference MVP and Finals MVP. I felt like that was the right thing to do because he deserved it. But I thought that he was already in bad graces before all of that, so he wouldn't even get it. But he still got those trophies, but I think they're shafting him with this. So because the streets wanted either Kyrie or Jaylen. And I felt like Jaylen was a better fit than Kyrie. And but they still went Derek White, where again, I'm not too beat up about that. Because honestly, we need a defense out there. And not that Jaylen can't play it, but we need a guy that's unselfish. We got too many scorers out there. So yeah, I didn't care for Grant's explanation. To me, it sounded a little collusion-y. Last thing I'll say is that even Jason Tatum I don't know what's going on. Even Jason Tatum didn't get any minutes against Serbia, so now the streets are talking about that, and I don't know what's going on with this Olympic team. It's a little too much drama and politics. I've never seen so much politics happening on an Olympian team. But then again, there was politics with what your boy was. That's my boy. Isaiah Thomas and Jordan back in the day. So I guess politics was always a thing. I think social media is just taking things a little bit further.
It's the debate shows are making it more of that's always been an element of this thing. It's just now because everything is a debate show and all of these shows that do these segments every day, it magnifies it. Because it's always been that way.
Yeah, no, and fair, but yeah, that's my point, man. So I'm disappointed in Grant Hill. I'm a company man at my job. I get it. You know what I'm saying? I get it, man. But still, bro, like, I just thought Grant Hill was just another kind of dude. But he's showing me what his new role is going to be going forward, and I don't care for it. But what are your thoughts, man, on Grant Hill calling or asserting that Jaylen Brown's a conspiracy theorist because he didn't make the Olympic team? You buying that?
So to be clear, he said, I don't again, I'm just rereading Grant Hill's comments. He said, I don't know if that was before or after things went out on Twitter, but yeah, I think this idea that there's a conspiracy theory. So, I always love a good conspiracy theory, but it was really, truly a basketball decision. I don't know that he's directly calling Jaylen Brown a conspiracy theorist. He's just, right. I think Jaylen Brown took it that way. Yeah. But he still used that word, though. You know what I'm saying? Like Grant Hill still instituted the idea of conspiracy into the conversation by using the word in the first place. Grant Hill calls games for March Madness, and then he calls games on TNT. He's always talked like a politician to me when it comes to his broadcasting career. Like, I don't really know how he talks in his private life, but he has a broadcasting personality that he brings up, that he conjures up whenever he's calling games. So the fact that he went total, president of the United States in terms of his explanation doesn't catch me off guard, because I've been hearing that version of Grant Hill since he started calling games on TNT and during March Madness. He just sounds presidential when he's calling games. Very not going to say anything even remotely controversial. Everything is complimentary. He'll never criticize a player. He's just he doesn't say anything compelling. So that's the kind of person that is usually the mouthpiece for a particular governing body or organization for something. And I didn't like his explanation either, because to me it didn't make sense. Like he said, the idea was to replace Kawhi Leonard with Derek White because of fit, insinuating that the style of play is comparable. But if if you're going to do that, Jaylen Brown's game is much more similar to Kawhi Leonard's than Derek White.
Agreed.
So if you were trying to do a swap in terms of style of play, that explanation doesn't make sense, because Kawhi's game is much closer to Jaylen Brown's game than Derek White's game is close to Kawhi's game. Like, he should have just said, even though we lost Kawhi Leonard, who's a playmaker and a scorer, we wanted another role player and 3-and-D guy on the team, which is why we went with Derek White. That's all he had to say.
Exactly.
But he tried to make it a matter of like fit he made it a matter of fit juxtaposed to Kawhi Leonard, because I do agree in a vacuum it is a better fit, because they do got a bunch of guys who need the ball. Derek White doesn't need the ball, and he plays good perimeter defense, and he makes open threes.
Right. That's all he had to say.
Yeah. So from a fit standpoint, just say that.
Right.
But he goes into fit comparing him to Kawhi, which to me didn't make sense, because Kawhi and Jaylen Brown kind of play the same game. Now, I think at this point Jaylen Brown's better because Jaylen Brown's healthier. Kawhi Leonard, I'm done with Kawhi. He's never I'm done with him. It's a wrap. I'm over him. I'm never going to ever again in my basketball watching life put him in the conversation for elite players. I refuse. I'll never do it again. He always gets hurt. Book it, guaranteed. He's not going to be available. He gets hurt. It is what it is, man. So I'm done with Kawhi. I'm just done. Mm-hmm. But Jaylen Brown and Kawhi are more similar in terms of game than Derek White and Kawhi. So the explanation to me did not make sense, and I just disagree with that. I didn't like that. Like, just explain that it's about replacing a playmaker with a role guy who can help in areas where you feel like the team is weakest. You know, in terms of like maybe perimeter D and open 3-point shooting. That's fine. But don't say, oh, we did it because we're losing Kawhi and replacing Kawhi with Derek White as the fit move, because the fit move to replace a guy with Kawhi's game would have been Jaylen Brown. But in my opinion, here's what he should, and this is where I'm going to go. This I say this halfway joking, but I'm also halfway serious.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what he should have done. He'd never have the guts to do this. Here's what he should have done. He should have done what he did. He should have brought in Derek White. I'm cool with that. Mm-hmm. Then he should have sent Jason Tatum home and replaced him with Jaylen Brown.
That would have been a hellstorm, bro.
I know he would. In a million years, they'd never do that. Mm-hmm. But the team would be better.
Yeah,
the team will be better. That's what he should have done. Kawhi, go home. Okay, bring in Derek White. And hey, look, Jason Tatum, we appreciate you. Now, of course, you have to do this before the team actually makes the trip overseas. But they had time to figure that out. Hey, man, look, Jason Tatum, we appreciate your service. We're gonna go ahead and replace you with Jaylen Brown because he's better than you. And the thing about it is, if you watch the exhibition games, Tatum didn't jump off the screen to me. Like, I'm watching the game, and it's no shocker to me that him and Halliburton didn't get minutes. Him and Halliburton during the exhibition games contributed the least on the team. Every time Steve Kerr went to a lineup where Tatum and Halliburton were on the court, the opposing team got back into the game. Mm-hmm. And then they had to sit those guys down and bring back LeBron and Curry and Devin Booker and Anthony Davis. Those to me are the four guys who are playing the best. And specifically, I'm not, I know I don't like the guy, but LeBron and Anthony Davis are playing very well.
Yeah.
So the thing is, whenever they put LeBron and Anthony Davis in the game, they shut everything down and they go on a run. They're blowing the team out by 20. Tatum and Halliburton get into the game with Tatum's shitty ass shot selection. They let the other team right back in the game. So I know I'm kind of being a jerk face by saying this, but I would have sent Jason Tatum home and I would have replaced him with Jaylen Brown, because Jaylen Brown plays better defense. His shot selection is better. Mm-hmm. And Jaylen Brown is less of this AAU do a whole bunch of moves and take a bad three. Jaylen Brown gets easier baskets better. He plays around the rim better. He's more likely to do basic things like cut and set screens. So that's what I would have done. But that's a tangent. To take it back to Grant Hill, I hear you on how he sounded presidential. I agree. And his explanation to me made zero sense. If it was about replacing Kawhi in terms of style of play, the move would have been Jaylen Brown over Derek White. Just give a better explanation instead of thinking that people are dumb and are not going to understand that you're basically just word salading everybody because you don't have the courage to just say we didn't want Jaylen Brown because we thought Derek White was the better fit in terms of roster construction.
Right. And it's because he said that. He did say that, but he didn't expound. Like, if he just expounded on that and stood on that, I think a lot of people would have been like, oh, well, I mean, Derek White is a good defender. Yeah. So, all right, let's just roll with it. But I'm just leaning on. I think there's a lot of stuff that goes on with Olympian things. There's an honor and there's a thing with that where you can say that I'm a gold medal winner and all that other stuff. And for whatever reason, I don't think they wanted Jaylen Brown to say that he was also a gold medalist. If he did this whole sweep thing, that would have been a narrative problem. I don't think they really like Jaylen Brown. I think see, that's what I'm saying. This is a weird thing with this dude. I think Jaylen Brown's an upstanding guy, and I think he's just wants to live a good life and, you know, do things, give back to the community and do all that good stuff. And he stands on business on stuff. But he's not always standing on NBA business. And everybody on that Olympian team you don't hear them say anything about anything. Matter of fact, most of the people on that team, when Kawhi got into his mess, either didn't say anything or threw not Kawhi, Kyrie.
Yeah.
They either didn't say anything or they threw him under the bus. Jalen defended him and stood on business with that. And I don't think that put him in good favor. He's not a Nike athlete. Kyrie left Nike. Like, I don't know how big Nike's pull is. He's in these circles. I'm not. But for him to feel like he got slighted due to some political reasons, I wouldn't call him I wouldn't even assert that he's a conspiracy theorist. That's what I'm saying. That was a harmful word to use towards a professional like this, because now there's going to be people running out here just thinking that he's a crackpot and that, you know, he thinks the world's out to get him. And I don't think so, man. I just think that he's in these circles. Like he said, hey, man, I know what's going on, you know? So, you know, don't call me that. And I just think that wasn't fair. I thought that was a cheap shot, to be honest. So, yeah, I didn't care for that. So, yeah, man, we'll see what's going on with this. I don't know what's going on with the Jaylen Brown saga, but apparently there is one now. But I support Jaylen. I think he's an upstanding dude. I think he's just a upstanding dude that's in the NBA and caught in some politics with guys who are willing to be corporate guys. And I think Jaylen is a corporate guy to an extent, but he also knows who he is. And I think with that type of stuff, those people don't always get favor. So just pick guys who are quiet, out of the way, and play by the rules. And, you know, those are the guys who are going to win gold medals. But the people that want to be individuals too much or want to do too much or say too much, those guys are going to get left off the team. So, and I think that's what's going on here. But, hey, man, who knows? But there's two things that Kyrie and Jaylen Brown have in common, and it was that whole fiasco. So, hey, man, we'll see what's going on. But, yeah, man, all this politics going on with the Olympian team, I don't care for it. But it looks like there's going to be more drama. These guys, there's always something going on with these guys. So we'll see what happens, man. But shout out to Jaylen Brown, though, man. Keep your head up, Flip.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about all that. I mean, I don't think it would have been a good idea to put Kyrie on the team. Maligned as he is, I think his style of play does not lend itself to being on that team. And I don't know. I mean, Jaylen Brown, I just think he's getting hosed. You know, like I said, I just think that these people made a move that they thought would make the roster better. And that move didn't involve Jaylen Brown. And I actually agree with it. I just think the reasoning was convoluted and didn't make sense. Because I do think that Derek White instead of Jaylen Brown makes sense from a fit standpoint because of what he does. But the way they explain why they did it to me didn't make sense. Right. But, you know, I don't necessarily know that I think that they're out to purposely keep him out, because I do think that the move was right. I just think it was a horrible excuse. It was a horrible reason. I don't like it. And like I said before, I think there was a place for him on the team. It just was in lieu of his teammate, who I think he's better than, honestly.
Yeah,
I really do think that. I know ESPN ain't going to say that because the advanced metrics say Jason Tatum is a top 5 player, but I actually watch these games and I'm just not a Tatum guy. I'm not impressed. I just think he's a great scorer and he's highly skilled, but I don't think that he is a force multiplier. I think Jaylen Brown is more of a force multiplier.
Agreed.
Last up, we got Malcolm Jamal Warner, who is once again voicing his displeasure with the hip hop industry. He is now going on record saying that hip hop is actually flourishing in the manufacturing or production of music that is actually anti-Black. Mm-hmm. So these are pretty interesting comments. We talked about Malcolm Jamal Warner before in relation to the N-word. You know, remember when we did that video where he talked. It was on his own podcast that he started, and he was talking about how he had to stop listening to J. Cole because J. Cole's just using the N-word like a crutch every other word, and he just got tired of hearing it. A sentiment that I, can relate to. So, he's talked about how he's kind of off when it comes to, the hip hop stuff. And this is another addition into that ongoing narrative when it comes to Warner. So this says Malcolm Jamal Warner feels hip hop has become anti-black. The actor appeared on Peachtree TV's Monica Pearson one-on-one to discuss his thoughts on hip hop and black music. The constant use of the N-word and messages filled with misogyny, murder, mayhem, and disrespect of fellow black people cheapens the music that is being put out today, according to Warner. Unfortunately, the success of hip-hop is predicated upon the anti-blacks, he said. When you listen to the hip-hop that gets the exposure, conscious hip-hop isn't getting exposure. The messages that are getting the exposure are misogyny, murder, mayhem, and disrespect for fellow black people. That's not all the hip-hop that exists. Plus, there's the matter of that word. You can't have a popular hip-hop song without using the N-word, said Warner, who considers himself a hip-hop purist. Our black music has somehow become anti-black, and it's been so normalized that it gets right by us. The conditioning, the programming is so powerful. This isn't the first time Warner has expressed discomfort with today's black music. TMZ caught up with him in May during the peak of the Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef. He expressed his disappointment with hip-hop and stated that the harmful elements of the culture, e.g. the N-word and misogynistic language, had been normalized. Warner pointed out that the music could have balance and not be negative most of the time. He blames the media for focusing on the ignorant side of hip-hop. He said that attention should be given to dope music played in underground circles, which also promotes positivity and is not viewed negatively. So here are Warner's comments.
Unfortunately, the success of hip-hop is predicated upon being anti-black.
Explain.
When you listen to the hip hop that gets the exposure, right? Conscious hip hop isn't getting exposure. The messages in hip hop that get the exposure are misogyny, murder, mayhem, and disrespect of fellow black people. Right? That's not all of the hip hop that exists.
Right, but that's what mainly.
That's what gets. Yeah, like you can't have a popular hip hop song without using the N-word
or calling women horrible names.
Yeah. It's like our black music has somehow become anti-black, and it's been so normalized that it gets right by us.
And it just did with me.
Yeah. The conditioning, the programming it's so powerful. Like in all of my poetry, I constantly talk about my love-hate relationship with hip hop. Right. But when those of us who are hip hop purists and we talk about how, the younger generation, hip hop is trash. Well, we're complicit in that because the younger generation grew up watching us and listening to us, listen to what we listen to. The content isn't different. The skill set may not be as great, right? The execution may not be as great as was artistically, but the content really is the same. And most of that content to be black music, again, is really, a lot of it's anti-black.
All right. So.
Hey man, I think Malcolm Jamal Warner is subscribed to the conscious approach or something. Like, what are you doing, bro?
So yeah, man. So I agree with like 99.999% of that. I'm trying to leave about 0.0001% standard deviation for any holes or slip ups in that logic, but. We've touched on Warner before. What did you think about what he said there?
Hey man, I agree, man. I agree 1,000%, bro. I might be on you might be 99%, man. I'm on 1,000. Hey man, I agree with this. I say this all the time. It wasn't until probably like 2015, 16. So if anybody doesn't know Famous Dex, young people know who Famous Dex is. So 2015, 16, I was listening to Famous Dex. Just as rambunctious as you want to be as far as a musician is concerned. If you even want to call him a musician, all right. But as I'm listening to these songs and just liking how the beat go and how he playing around with it and having fun, he would do these loops of misogynistic things where he'll say stuff like he just want the mouth, he don't need the vagina. I don't trust these B words, I don't trust these H words. I got two women tag teaming each other, all of this stuff. But I don't want to, I'd rather be with my N words. I don't want to be with these B's. And as I'm listening to this, I'm like, it's kind of gay. And I said, hey, bro, it's kind of gay. And I was like, what kind of anthems are these? Because I was also, in that same ballpark when it came to Lil Wayne. In 2008, 9, where he kept saying the same things of just disrespecting women in a particular way, where he just rather be with his N words than these O's. And so even then I was like, what is this? So fast forward, when people talk about, I'm about to go a little gal brain here, but for anybody that wants to keep on, but for the industry at large, one thing that I would say, because I watched a lot of videos talking about the music industry or whatever, and a lot of ditty behavior goes on behind closed doors. And it's one thing to be misogynistic, and it's another thing to be like really just anti-woman. Misogynistic could just be rude and this and that or whatever. I guess misogynistic could be classified as hate of women, but this is like actual hate of women. Where, there's videos of 40 dudes all in one living room, no woman around. I'd rather be with my N words than these O's. And I'm like, what kind of stuff are they promoting? So along with that, the sagging of the pants, the painting of nails, the other stuff, to me, this comes off as real emasculine type of stuff. So it's deeper to me than just being misogynistic. To me, it's actually just really brainwashing, a form of hatred towards women. And and I just couldn't stand that. So you want to tag team that with the overt violence, the talk about selling of drugs, you name it. It's all throughout our music. And if you ask me, if you're against a black woman, then you're against black people. If you're willing to sell drugs to our people, then you're against black people. If you're willing to murder one of our people senselessly in the street, then you're not for black people. So literally every bar is no different than a Klansman. So he'll come into your hood, sell your drugs to your auntie and them, shoot the N-word across the street, F these N-word B's. It sounds like a Klansman to me. So there's a lot of Clayton Bigsby's in the game. And they don't like black people. They don't like black men. And they don't like black women. And in order to be on, you have to talk that talk. So I would just go a step further. I wouldn't just say that it's misogynistic. I would also say that it's homoerotic. And because of the diddler behavior. Last thing I'll say is that when I'm talking about this stuff, what I mean is, there would be, I would hear back in the day that they would have a woman in the studio, even though Rick James was a super freak, they'll still have a woman in the studio as the muse, to motivate them to write whatever song about women, But, nowadays, these guys just finished doing a Diddy session with a whole bunch of guys in the studio. If there's a woman around, she's bought and paid for. So, and then after they finish doing their Diddy behaviors or whatever, they get on a mic and literally say that I don't need no bees, money over bees. These bees ain't nothing. I'm gonna be with my N-words. I love my N-words. After just turning up Diddy style in the studio. So to me, I think Malcolm Jamal was, hey, misogyny is a good term for it. I'll just go a little bit further that he's not willing to go or whatever. He didn't, whatever. But I really feel like there's an agenda to turn men out too. And not overtly, but subconsciously for you to hate Black women. So I can go on about this, man, but I really agree with Malcolm here. People aren't going to necessarily look at it that way, but I think that's a good way of putting it. And also calling these dudes Clayton Bigsby's is another way of looking at how they're talking to our people. But what are your thoughts, man, on Malcolm Jamal Warner saying that hip hop nowadays is anti-Black? You agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, the content in the lyrics, they're saying that they are, actively doing harm in their own communities. So I don't know what other way there is to interpret it. Like, they're talking about the drugs that they sell to the people in their own neighborhoods. They're talking about the disregard or dismissiveness towards the women in their own neighborhood actively. So I don't know any other way to interpret it. It seems pretty simple to me. Oh, but JV wins. They're just talking about their environment. Oh, it's because of suffering and slavery and racism. That's why we like this. It's their fault, not ours. Blah, 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 all of that crap that they'll say to defend it. I think that he's absolutely 100% on the money. The reason why there's only one thing that I will say, because I think the point that he made about previous generations was correct, but I also think that he was a bit incomplete. While I do agree with him that previous generations like ours are complicit in this being the current environment of hip hop music, because we set the stage for it and the younger generations just grabbed the torch and they ran with it based upon the stuff that we were like in our cohort, and then the cohort that we were watching, they kind of created it. So I do agree with him, but the only part about it that I would say is incomplete is I feel as though during the time that we were coming up listening to it, hip hop was viewed as an offshoot of Black American like culture. So it was an aspect of it, but it wasn't the whole thing. You also had the wholesome TV shows, your Family Matters and your My Wife and Kids and your Martins and your Wayans brothers and the Sisters and all of that other stuff, right? The My Brothers and Me's and all of these other things. So you had that going on TV. You also had jazz, and you also had R&B, which ceased to be an actual genre a while ago for whatever reason. But you had R&B going on back then. You had the TV shows, and then you had the hip hop, and then of course you had the athletes, the pro basketball players and football players. So hip hop was viewed back then, I would say during the 90s and the early 2000s, as a portion of what is Black American culture. Mm-hmm. But at some point during the mid 2000s, when the music ceased to be a subgenre and it became a major genre, and this is where I holler collusion when it comes to the music industry, is there was a very concerted effort made to sort of put it into the atmosphere that hip hop is solely synonymous with Black culture. Mm-hmm. That wasn't the case when I was a child. Like when I was a kid and when I was growing up, being conditioned with this stuff, I had other things to look at and say, okay, well, this is one thing, but here's another. But somewhere along the way, we became complicit with the notion that rap and hip hop music is synonymously Black culture.
Mm-hmm.
So, in other words, if you don't come from this community, but you want to glean what it means to be a Black American, the only thing that you need to do is listen to this music or watch those music videos.
Mm-hmm.
That tells you everything that you need to know. Now, of course, we know that that's not true, but if that's your primary export, other people don't know no better.
Mm-hmm.
The world knows no better. The rest of the country that isn't living in these communities knows no better. So they're going to look at these music videos on MTV and BET, and they're going to hear this music, and it's so ubiquitous, they're going to glean what it means to be Black solely from this music and from nothing else. So that's the difference. That's sort of the mind F that has occurred in recent memory. I would say from 2007, 8, 9 on is the inception of the idea that this is Black culture. So much so that when those award shows come along, the BET award show and all of that other stuff, and they're doing the promos for these events, they're saying this is a night for culture. Because corporate America is in bed with the idea that hip hop and rap music is Black culture.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else. So when you tie that to the kind of music that gets popularized, which to his point is a specific tone, is a specific version of the content, therein lies the problem. Because if you're going to stipulate that this is your culture, but all anybody hears is that kind of music, then that you're going to get that tug and pull relationship where you have people like him saying this ain't our culture. This is actually the inverse of it. It's the opposite. It's the anti of our culture. And I agree with him 100%. I was all good with this stuff when it was understood that it was purely entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
But when we started to sort of piece together this idea that this is our culture, that's when I started to become uncomfortable. Because then every other element that is represented within the music from a popularized standpoint also becomes your culture. So the using of the N-word and the glorification of other rather unseemly forms of behavior, now that's your culture too. Right? It's not just the music in and of itself. It's the N-word thing, and it's the women thing, and it's the crime thing and the drugs thing. Those things are now synonymous with your culture too.
Yep.
Because you're saying this is your culture, and this music is synonymous with who you are.
Yep.
So that's what people like Malcolm Jamal Warner are railing against. Because they made it this way. I think the music industry made it this way. I think corporate corporations that saw the capitalistic money-making opportunity combined with the music industry did this, where they sort of impressed upon the general population that this is Black culture. Everything else is outside of it. Everything else is an other. So if there's a artsy Black person who's an artist, they're viewed as an other. We've talked about this before.
Mm-hmm.
Black country music artists, to which there are many, they're an other. Lenny Kravitz is an other.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who's the drummer for Hootie and the Blowfish, Darius Rucker, he's an other. You know, Jimmy Allen, he's a Black country music artist. He's an other. Why are they others? They make Black art too. Country music, they're Black art. That's Black art too. But they're others because what is actually Black culture is this stuff.
Right.
Who made these rules? Who came up with that? Who dictated that that's the reality? So that's when you have people like Warner who are saying this is anti-Black.
Mm-hmm.
Because to be Black is to embrace all areas of art and entertainment and exports that we actively participate in, which ain't just that form of music. It's everything. So he's 100% correct. I agree with him 1,000%. He told no lies as far as I'm concerned. I don't care about all of these hip hop apologists who want to make all of these excuses for why things are what they are. They don't have to be. I said before, I listen to Sirius XM every week in my car. It is uncensored, paid for radio. You don't have to play what isn't, like, people are paying a subscription fee for this service. You can put on whatever you want. Yet every day what I'm hearing is thought rap, vagina rap, prostitution rap, or drug and gun bar rap. Yep. Every day.
Yep.
And the only time that I hear any sort of balance thrown into the mix is when I have to listen to an underground DJ who has his own show for an hour a week and he gets to play whatever he wants for his hour. But outside of that, it's the same old thing that the machine of the music industry is paying to put in front of people's faces.
Correct. Yes.
So he's 100% correct. He told no lies. And if I'm a hater or anti whatever, I don't give a damn. You can call me whatever you want. But until there is more of a balance in terms of the representation of this music, I will always reject the idea that that is my culture. And if you want to go so far as to call it anti-Black, I won't disagree.
Yeah, and the corporatizing of the art form is where it went south. And I didn't say this. Ice Cube said this. A person who's very involved in the music industry, been in it for over 30 years, so he knows what's going on. He's also been in the music industry. He's also fighting tooth and nail with the NBA for being an outsider trying to do some type of business. But these are Ice Cube's words. And he said that the same people who own the record label are the same people who invest in private prisons. There is a correlation between this goofy music that people want to call culture and prison populations.
Yeah.
And so these people who invest in these rappers also invest in beds for these prisons.
He said that on Bill Maher's show.
Yeah.
Bill, for anybody who didn't see that, that was on Bill Maher. Yeah.
And so, you know, he's got empirical data. He said he watched this stuff. He right there behind closed doors. So when you talk about who's financing this war against our people, then you would have to look at whoever owns these labels. You would have to look at whoever owns these private prisons. You have to see whoever's invested for us to be drug kingpins and murderers. Because that's why they're going to continue to come out with more anthems to make sure you got something to drill to later. And I'm telling you right now, this has nothing to do about the reflection of what we're seeing in our community. All right. So honestly, to tie back into the first topic, where we were talking about Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry is no different. He's a film industry rapper, if you will. He does the bidding of the film industry. You don't get that high where he's at without rubbing the right elbows or doing some Diddy action. And so one thing about Tyler Perry is what he does is he's no different than your favorite, like Drake. He's no different. He's a corporate sellout doing his job to make sure that people stay in the right state of trauma. And there's a way for you to reflect on the hood and talk about the circumstances in a particular way where you're actually giving a lesson, if you will. You know, riding dirty, you know, UGK style. Where there's a way for you to articulate the certain various parts of the struggle, but you're not sitting there dwelling on it. You're talking about grinding your way up out of it. And also talking about the pitfalls if you continue to go down that lane, you know, old school 8-ball MJG stuff. So there's ways for you to articulate the struggle without always dwelling in it. And so the same rhetoric goes for Tyler Perry or anybody else that wants to be involved in any type of art form that exploits our people. So somebody could sit here and say, hey man, you know, you guys are too hard on it, it's just entertainment or whatever. And hey man, just like how Malcolm Jamal Warner said, these young people are doing what we're doing because they watched us do this stuff. They listen to what we listen to. They watch us do this. At some point transforms from a form of just being entertainment to conditioning. And so conditioning and entertainment, which one is it? I will holler it's conditioning. And the more you listen to this gringy stuff where they're talking about all of the pitfalls and all of the bad parts about life, all the bad parts of our community, and glorifying those things, the more people are going to grow up glorifying those types of things. So I think there's a correlation. And to say that, and to suggest that it's just reflecting on the hood is suggesting what racist people say or racist people think is that you ain't nothing but a criminal.
Yes, that's your natural state.
That's correct. Your natural state. So we're just reflecting on our natural state. You sound like them.
Right.
And I'm trying to tell you that that's not our natural state. That's not our homeostasis. That's not even how the art form even started. But once the corporate interests that got involved, who have their own agendas, got involved with it, they give you the Ice Spice, they give you the Sexy Reds, the Lottos, the whoever else that's popping right now, that's thought pocket rapping, because that's the new wave. They already turned the men out. Now they're turning it over to the women. And I can guarantee you this: if y'all want to say that's just entertainment, you already see what's happening now. Let's wait 5 years and see what's going on. We always talking about how X work is becoming normalized. 5 years from now, it will be a mark on your income taxes. You giving up the box? Check this box. So Malcolm Jamal Warner's got a point here. If you guys want to think that I got a tinfoil hat on and I'm thinking a little bit too deep for this, all right, get your Tiffany Haddish on and get out the ignorant box and learn a little something about what's going on out here. Draw, connect some dots. You'll be greatly surprised. So Malcolm Jamal Warner, shout out to him, bro. If you ever want to come on a conscious approach, bro, you talking like a conscious approachian. We can have you on a panel, bro, and we can ask you some questions, see how you feel about these things, man. But I 1000% agree, and I feel like this is a discussion that needs to be happening more in our community, where we're actually not putting these people up on pedestals anymore, and we're actually chopping them down to size and promoting people who actually want to see the best in our people. So well said, Malcolm. Well said.
Yeah, I think he's 100% correct. Mm-hmm. And it's just very disappointing when you get these mouthpieces in the media and all of these various platforms who are just they bend the knee to this stuff. They don't have a critical bone in their body. This is another thing that I complain about with this industry. And they basically attacked you for being out of touch. So like if you have a dissenting opinion at all, it's not because whatever you have to say is legitimate or has any kind of merit. It's because you think this way because you're old or you're out of touch or you're stuck in a previous era or generation. Like they always play these mind games with you where they want to try and hit you with the age card because you have a dissenting opinion. Like, nah, bro, like that's a very closed-minded, that's a very narrow-minded way of looking at it. And nothing is at its best, most pure form when it does not have people who are willing to put checks and balances in place to make sure that it's being the best version of itself. The minute that everybody is an apologist running around saying that no matter what you do, it's always good, that's when the quality of it deteriorates.
Yep.
And this is no different. That's what we got going on here. And it's been going on now for almost 2 decades. So it's sad. It really is. But all you can do is speak on it. So you know what? I might go and subscribe to Warner's podcast because that's the second time that he has completely knocked it out of the park to me. So shouts out to Malcolm Jamal Warner, man. He has the right idea. I think he's 100% correct on this, and more people need to speak on it without being too chicken shit because you don't want to get mad because you don't want people getting mad at you.
Facts.
Right? But we'll go ahead and close things out, man. Another great stream in the books. JV Wins Dogon SS, as we always do it. Check us out Instagram at JV Wins, JVWINS, and Conscious Approach on Instagram, Con Approach, CONAPPROACH. Be on the lookout for wherever you get your podcasts available. Shouts out to everybody who's been hitting that subscribe button, leaving them comments, hitting the like button. We certainly appreciate it. Go my Miami Heat. Everybody, please think for yourself. Do not be a group thinker. Please think for yourself. And until next time, we will catch you on the next video.
And the name is Dogon SS. And you can find me on Instagram at Dogon_SS and on YouTube and TikTok and DraftKings, Dogon_SS as well. Hey, y'all, football season's about to get started, y'all. All right. I might start a league. Let me know. All right. But if I start the league, I'm taking everybody's money. All right. So hit me up on DraftKings, man. Send me an invite or something, you know what I'm saying? So I could take your Skrillers. All right. But as I say on every pod, guys, all right, don't be too high, don't be too low. Keep it calm, keep it chill, keep it player. And don't let anybody get you off your pivot, including everybody that wants to make you think that entertainment is just entertainment. Holler at me if you think it's conditioning. But until the next time, guys, we'll catch y'all on the flip side.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Another good one in the books, man. We look forward to seeing what everybody has to say on these various videos. But until then, we will catch y'all later. We are out. Peace, baby.
Peace. Go Canes. National